to the Architect Network. We're back with another one of our free workshops. Always just give it a little second to make sure I can see myself, that we're live, nothing has gone wrong, which is always the biggest stress with these, but it should come on any moment. There's usually a little bit of a delay. But thank you guys for joining. As always, here we go. As always, we love to know where you guys from, so please do put in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. That's the whole point of being an online platform, is that we can reach people from all over the world, and that's why we're doing these workshops here live on YouTube. So yeah, put in the comments where you guys are from. I always love to see that. And thank you guys, and welcome to our next ATN Summit workshop with Speckle, xFigura, and HENN Architects. And we're going to be talking with all of the guys and going through all of these tools on how to go from like early stage concept design, how to utilize AI, how to create images, some videos, and also how you can create your own dashboards and send information back and forth with Speckle. And how it's actually being used right now in practice with HENN. As always, if you like this workshop, just simply give us a like, give us a little boost. I'm just going to read out. Oh, we got some people from the US, Switzerland, Ireland, our friends over in Ireland, Guatemala. Just got back from Guatemala a few months ago, so hopefully that's someone that we met whilst I was out there. As you guys know, this workshop, or as you may or may not know, this workshop is a build-up to the ATN Summit. Now, what is the ATN Summit? It is our two-day conference that we're hosting here in London in the 18th and 19th of March. It's a conference where we're gathering some incredible speakers from around the world to talk about architecture, technology, influence. We've got people building BIM 2.0. We've got most famous architecture practices you can think of that will be speaking over the 2 days. And in fact, we're also doing a bonus day called the Influencer Day, which we've just released. I'll put this in the comments below, where we'll also be doing a day that is around architectural influence, being a YouTuber, creating your own Instagram account from some of the biggest influencers in the AEC or architecture space, who will also be in attendance at the conference. Tickets are now on sale right now. We're now in the main ticket sale, which will be ending in a couple of weeks. Tickets are going quite quickly, so grab them now before they go and reserve your spot in the ATN Summit, where you can meet all the people that you'll see here. I think all these guys that you'll see online today will also be there at the conference. Also, a little reminder from one of our other workshops, we have also been doing the ATN D5 video competition. This is in collaboration with Big, HP, and D5. That is closing on Monday, so it is the last weekend to get your stuff together and submit something for that. The challenge is to take the birdhouse project from Big and animate it using D5 and create, a pretty unique view. So if you haven't already done it and you want to kill yourself over the weekend, you can win a whole bunch of stuff from the ATN courses, licenses for D5, and the winner will actually get a HP computer, which is pretty cool. All right, that's all the promo of the event and everything. I'll put some more stuff in the links, and let's move on to introducing our first tutor for today. So give me a second. I've got like screens all over the place. I just got to make sure I got the right lineup. So let's bring in our first tutor or speaker for today. We got Emiliano Lupo, who is the BIM manager and design systems manager at HENN Architects, tuning all the way in from Berlin. Let's bring him on. Emiliano, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Hi, Holger. Thanks for the introduction.
Thank you for joining us. I've always been a big fan of HENN, and it'd be really interesting to see what you guys are doing with Speckle and xFigura. So yeah, interested to find out more.
Yeah, happy to be here and show a little bit. I'm here from Berlin, from our design studio, like our early phases department, so to speak.
There you go. You also get a glimpse into the background of the office there. So it's almost
Yeah,
like a little office tour as well.
yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Okay, and then next up, I'll bring onto stage. We have Chuck or Charles, depending on uh, how he introduced himself, who is a software engineer at Speckle Systems or Speckle. Chuck, thank you for joining. You're joining from London, but you're American, right?
Yes, yeah. I moved to London just a few years back. And yeah, today I'm Chuck, representing Speckle. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And yeah, Chuck was actually at our event last night, so I got to see you yesterday at our Pechakucha Epic Games, which was pretty epic, pun intended.
All night with that joke.
Okay, and last but not least, we have Daniel Escobar, who is with xFigura. He's head of research and development. So we'll be bringing Daniel onto the stage. Daniel, how's it going?
Hey guys, happy to be here. Ollie, thank you for hosting this, and happy to be here with the guys from HENN and Speckle. So I run R&D at xFigura, and we're excited today to show some of those workflows that we've been developing internally. I'm happy to be here, guys. Cheers.
And Daniel, we actually knew each other a little while ago from the online world, the online creator world. He has the page Diffusion Architecture, right? That's was kind of like in that AI boom. You were one of the big pages that was kind of like posting everyone's stuff, and it was kind of the place to go to see what people are building.
Yeah, definitely. So building off when we had kind of like the first mid journey, I've been following through what all the designers have been using generative AI to develop like interesting, cool architectural designs, and we've grown quite a following. So we try to post the best curated content out there. So if you want to see it, check it out. It's on Instagram.
There you go. Yeah, check that out. I'll post a bunch of stuff in the comments. Let's just go back to where people are tuning in from. We've got a few more: UAE, Italy, Somalia. I think Tuti from Guatemala is tuning in. Chile. I'd love to see how many people. So yeah, if you just joined us, do put in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. We always like to see that. But before we jump into things, maybe it'd be kind of cool to go one by one and just give us a brief overview of like what you're actually doing in your role, you know, from working in practice to you guys working in the tech space. But maybe let's do it in the same order. Emiliano, maybe talk about what is your role at HENN?
Yeah, sure. I joined HENN about 8 years ago now as a BIM manager. And as the role of kind of BIM and technology in general in the AEC has developed, kind of I have been kind of like following suit, and at the in kind of like detaching progressively from the concrete day-to-day project work until today, where I lead the emerging technology team, which is kind of an incubator / software development hub in the company. So we have our own delivery cycles, our own budget. We of course work on the processes that end up in the projects, but it's kind of more of a development and implementation role, kind of an R&D department.
And you guys are doing everything. You're also doing computation and like the whole mix of things, or you mostly focus on one discipline?
It's a tricky question. Like our building don't really look like made through computational design. We don't do twisted towers and those kind of things. But we do have, let's say, data-driven processes in which computational processes play a role, from simulations to data processes. We focus a lot on the early phases, like programming, in the sense of architectural programming, as one of the foundation of the practice. So we really put a lot of effort into what makes a building, the connections that make a building before even the idea of a building is there.
Nice. And Chuck, give us an idea. What are you doing at Speckle? What are you building? And also maybe touch on your background's quite interesting, right? You did study architecture, but you kind of got more into the software side. I see you worked at like WeWork. You've been involved in
Yeah,
Ladybug, Hyper.
yeah, I
You really got into the software side. Explain what you do and how you got there.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I graduated with a bachelor's in architecture from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn in 2019. But in our second year is when they introduced us to Grasshopper, and anyone who saw me finding Grasshopper for the first time, it made me a bit feral, a bit obsessed. And New York was the right place to be with that kind of obsession. I got to rub shoulders with WeWork as it was kind of taking off and catch the end of it, and but got to meet people like David Manns at TT, Andrew Human at Hyper at the time, and I said something to the effect of, "I want to do more of this," and they said, "Okay, here's how you do it." Right, and so that was an architecture degree into a little bit of WeWork, right? A really good time at Pollination with Mustafa, into Hyper, and now Speckle for the last 2 years or so, kind of coinciding with my move out to London. Um, yeah, an architecture degree into now the AEC startup space for almost 5 years. Um, yeah, it's my home. It's also a bit insane, but it's a cool place to be right now. And then AI happened, and now we have to
Yeah.
re-question everything again. So yeah.
Did you, I'm curious, did you ever do like a boot camp to become like a proper developer, or was it something you just learned?
Yeah, boot camps are one of my soapboxes. I have nothing against them in theory, but I always recommend, especially with something as niche as AEC, just make something and put it out there. I think that's
Yeah.
gonna teach you a lot and help you as well. It's really hard to find a boot camp that you can trust, I think, but it's also really good to learn anything anytime you can, right? So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. There you go. And by no means least, Daniel, give us a little bit. What are you doing at xFigura? Maybe, yeah, talk about that journey because I know you were kind of also running this page and then you joined xFigura. So yeah, talk us through it.
Yeah, sure. So my background is in architecture. I also did computer science and computational design. And then over like I would say probably over the past 5 years or so, I dove a little bit deeper into AI, generative AI, especially like image generation, 3D generation, and so forth. And that kind of like coincided a bit with the Instagram page when we started. Then I've been following that through, and then that's been coupled with some research, especially with the founder of xFigura, George. We've done like some workshops teaching AI for architectural design. We also done some publications. We exhibited last year at the Venice Biennale. So it's been like a merge of like architecture, AI, and computational design. And my role currently at xFigura is essentially taking a little bit of all these worlds, merging them together, and figure out how we can make the best product available for architects and designer that incorporates some of the latest tools. So bring in AI, architecture, put them into one platform, and make it easily useful and available to everybody.
Yeah, I'm hearing more and more good things about it, kind of sweeping practices, adopting it and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to. I've seen it a bit in action, so I'm curious to see it in action today. So that's why I do these workshops. So it's just like I get to learn for free, basically. So,
It's a nice show and tell.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just before we kick things off, a little bit of housekeeping. So today we'll present basically in the order that they've just been. Emiliano will give us a little bit of presentation about HENN and how they're using some of these things. Chuck will give you a bit of an overview of Speckle, and then we'll jump over to Daniel, who will walk us through xFigura. If you guys have any questions along the way, please do put them in the chat and I will moderate them and bring them up. We will take little breaks for Q&A and stuff like that, so do put them in the chat and we'll get around to them. I think the guys might have some codes and stuff. Anything that needs to be shared, I'll put it in the comments as well. And when the video is finished, I'll also put it in the description. But I think that's it. Let's kick things off. I think we're now going to hand over to Emiliano. I'll
Yep.
Oh, Chuck, do you want to say something? Or
Just
no,
some good
that was
points.
just
Okay.
let's
Yeah,
go,
thanks.
let's go, let's rock and roll.
I'm
um,
gonna share
yeah,
my screen, right?
I'll hand it over to Emiliano to share your screen. I'm going to be in the background just moderating things, and me, Chuck, and Daniel will be in the background. So we'll hand it over to you.
All right. So yeah, welcome everybody to the workshop. Where I have the honor to start things off. As mentioned, I work for HENN. HENN is an architecture office primarily based in Germany. We also have an office in Shanghai. We're 350 people around. You can head over to the website, check what we do. But we mostly design in different fields like healthcare and science, office, do innovation campuses, word everything that has to do with the workplace or anything but residential, more or less. In the company, we talk a lot about innovation. It's kind of required with the kind of clients that we have, and about collaboration, which is something that we're kind of very open about, especially in the fields of technology, of design technology. We also collaborate with what we classically seen as our competitors, like other architecture office, but we find that especially in technology, it's really not where the competition expresses itself. It's kind of like the other way around, that together we can kind of like start from the same ground, not everybody has to do the same mistakes, and we all get a bit farther, a bit faster. And talking of common ground, the problems or the challenges or the discussion that we have for our projects, zooming a bit out from technology itself and going a bit into specific of architecture, our awareness of the social needs that our projects respond to and the planetary boundaries we need to respond. And this is not just us, like this I believe is nowadays every single office. And the way that we address this vision, or the way that we want to strive to be better addressing social needs and planetary boundaries, concretely goes through a lot of a lot of specific topics, a lot of specific knowledges, a lot of specific workflow processes, I can call them in many ways. And all of them need to work together. But each of them has its own, again, processes. Nowadays, most of them are digitalized, but very often they don't communicate with each other very well. For many reasons. Sometimes the reason is compliance, mistrust. Sometimes the reason is technological. And I think that very common theme when one looks at the development of tools in the ANC industry nowadays is tools that promise to kind of like fix this complexity, kind of like give a solution to that. And the two tools that the workshop is today about are also kind of like giving their own answer to that. And in general, there are two ways to navigate complexity. And now focusing a bit more on digital tools, but this applies to also other fields. One way is to try to develop a shared languages between the different applications. You don't move them, you leave them where they are. You try to understand their individual entry point and exit point and try to build kind of like a tensor net between them, trying to figure out how they can communicate somehow with each other through a shared language. This is, in a nutshell, what Speckle is doing, at least what Speckle is doing for us. And the other approach to navigate complexity is identifying things that can go together and can be kind of like pushed together. And then you kind of say, okay, I am going to build a new single entry and exit point for this cluster of problems that before were kind of like far away from each other. And now they're close together. And this also simplifies the whole picture. I don't know if Chuck and Daniel agree with my summarization of what their tools do, but from our perspective, this is what they bring to the table. Not just they, these are very common patterns, but they do it in a way that we can leverage and it improves our work. And I hope that this is something that also resonates with other people in the call that are dealing with processes in our industry that are increasingly complex and increasingly digital. Now let's go a bit into the detail of what we do with Speckle and xFigura. So Speckle at HENN, we've been using it for 7 years now, more or less, 6 years. It has kind of like 3 different layer of implementation. I'm gonna show a couple of examples for each one, but I think it's helpful to kind of give the overall picture. As the one with the highest learning curve, or like the least favorable point of entry, is using it as an SDK, not because it's a difficult SDK, but just not because everybody codes. Like coding is getting more easier by the day, but still requires a bit more investment to just use as a tool. And this is a bit kind of like the multiple nature of Speckle. Speckle is a tool, is a platform, but is also a technology. So the first level is Speckle as technology. The second level is where it requires a bit of understanding of the data that is behind, and it's a whole topic of model validation and various BIM uses. And the third level is kind of like purely as a platform, or where it can just plug into our collaboration and design processes. I'm gonna go now a bit, this is a workshop, so I've prepared a bit of a canvas, and we can go a bit back and forth between the example. And Oliver, if there are questions that are kind of relevant or that you think should be asked to clarify a specific topic, just let me know, okay? So as a developer tool, or as a very common use for us, is to use Speckle as a geometry data layer. So we build an app of some kind, and we use Speckle and the connectors and the tools that they provide to store and handle geometry. An example is our Carbonitor. Carbonitor, sorry. Carbonitor is our LCA sustainability app that has a whole system of database and sustainability data in the background that we want to link with specific models. Sometimes they are full buildings, sometimes they are kind of like systems that we use kind of like to generate reference values. In this case, something that we do quite often is generate rather detailed models of facade systems. And Speckle allows us to just save the geometry somewhere with just a little reference index that then we can link on the moment with the data that it's needed, in this case, sustainability data. So here we have different kind of sustainability indicator or environmental impact indicator. So we can kind of like on the spot switch between them. These are the values linked to them. And this allows us to kind of like get the quantities are picked from the model, but the actual values are picked from the library. With the sustainability data allows us to kind of like keep things kind of lightweight and flexible like that. And it's a principle that we use also for validating data. This is kind of like a middle level, like a Power BI dashboard. You kind of need to understand a bit the data shape behind, but you have Power BI and the whole query builders that help a bit with that. This, I think, is a very common case around program for a competition that needs to be validated. And we can then load that data, transform it, kind of like take this horrible table as they come with interstitial sums, kind of like transform it into a nice organized data table, put it into Power BI in this case, and take a model of rooms from Revit, send it into Speckle, and through an index like room name or the room program ID, have a quick overview of the rooms that are under-programmed, the rooms that are over-programmed, and so on. And this way, it's very effective because this allows people that cannot or don't have the time to open Revit and get into it and get this kind of overview from the authoring software to have it in Miro, in Power BI, in Teams, wherever is the collaboration space. And the idea behind these two, like these are two different use cases, but the idea is still the same. Like the reason that Speckle for us is easy to use is that Speckle objects are simple dictionaries, very linked to the geometry, very linked with arbitrary properties, and one can just use those properties, organize the model in a way that allows us to link it to external data. External data might be sustainability data, round program data, whatever else you might need. The evolution of this, what we're now using in projects, but it's still the same underlying technology, just kind of like the newest iteration of it. Is for our projects that are on the ACC. We work mostly in Revit, but I think a lot of it is transferable to other technologies. To get an example, we have a project on the ACC which is done of 1 million different models with 1 million different versions of them, and different actors, different stakeholders uploading regularly models there, and we need to run model validation, model checks, and so on. And the way that we now are doing it is using the new ACC Hub integration. We define which model gets automatically published to Speckle, and then we kind of can use each software for the things that they do best. So we can use the ACC model coordination to run clash detection. So it has its own rule sets based on the views, and you need to be checked against clash with this or that to generate a set of results in the ACC. We do the same in Speckle. We use Speckle Automate. There's a model checker that has its own kind of like query language to define the rules that we want to check. This was originally an IDS, information delivery specification file, which is a building standard format for defining check-in rules for LOI. And we built a little code that translates IDS into Speckle model checker rules to test the system, and it works quite well. And it delivers for automate check-in results in Speckle. So the system is really parallel here. And both systems have then connectors to Power BI, so that we can have a federated check-in dashboard, essentially. We can take the LOI check from Speckle, which has a system that is very nicely expandable. We can take the crash detection check from the ACC and have it all in one place that we can then share. So we have the crashes and we have the LOI details. And this is something that doesn't need the BIM manager or the BIM coordinator to go in and run it on Solibri, export an Excel, update the thing. It's all cloud-based, and the moment that a consultant or whoever in the project uploads a model that needs to be checked, the whole thing kind of like runs, and we get here the result, which is kind of nice. One can spend more time looking at the issues and try to understand, is this really an issue, than generating the issues. Like, one still has to check everything, but at least the part that can be automated is automated. Yeah, just as a preview, we told Speckle, hey, we really like to use IDS. We're in Germany. We need to always to deliver IFC, and we need to do support open BIM workflows. So IDS has become a very handy standard for sharing LOI check-in rules, and Speckle is now developing together. It's now developing an IDS checker for intelligence, which is something that I guess Chuck will show you, which can take a standard IDS file and just run the check, which is very nice. Finally, last use case for us for Speckle is the collaboration aspect. It's kind of like the simplest if you want. You can just take any Speckle model and dump it into Teams as an or Notion or Miro, and whatever your collaboration space is. And the most simple use case, you make a screenshot, you sketch on it together with other people while you're on a call, and you discuss the design. You do whatever. And you don't need to open Rhino, you don't need to ask your colleague which is the new file, and so on. This is the simplest, but it's kind of transformative in a way, or like it enables to do things in an easier way. And this is like just a viewer, so you have a lot of options. So you can add a different model, you can navigate to previous versions of the model, you can have all the things that you do in Speckle. You can also do I don't know, do kind of like federated models, adding terrain, keep things separated. You have layers, you have all these kind of things, and just to make the current iteration of the design accessible, it's a relatively new thing, especially in Miro, because it's not been possible for that long. But it's quite useful. And this is also my way to switch over to xFigura. Topic is early phases and early design iterations. So xFigura offers a canvas that kind of like puts in one place a lot of Gen AI models, just in a nutshell. And one of the nice things that they have, I guess we're also going to show it later, is the Speckle loader, when you can just load a stream, a Speckle model into your canvas, and just the view. You can select multiple views and kind of like take it as a basic for your Gen AI workflow. This looks very familiar to whoever has worked with ComfyUI or Crea or other tools like that. But being able to start from the Speckle model, since we're already using Speckle in many places, it's a really nice feature here. And it's and from the moment that it's on the canvas, it's integrated in everything else. Saved view from the Speckle model becomes an image essentially, so that then you can use image-to-image workflows. You can do in-painting, upscaling, all those kind of things. You can also sketch on it, like I did before, so that you say I want a portal here, and then you get a portal here in the rendering. Those kind of stuff. I'm not going to go too much into basic workflows because I think Daniel can do that way better than me. But I'm just going to show a bit of the bleeding edge is a bit pretentious, but like of the new things that we're trying to develop. So one of them is really work on sketch or image to 3D model. This is not one of our projects, but it's just kind of like a random sketch that from which we generated a rendering, kind of like in bright color to give kind of like bright cuts, and from that we can generate a 3D model. So this is a 3D model. It's you can navigate, rotate. You can, as if it was the Speckle loader from before. You can select views and do renderings, but you can also export it and get very quickly, very early sun studies or any kind of simulations. It's not perfect yet. The scale is never correct, obviously. Very often it's very, very tiny, so that before you can go into Grasshopper or Climate Studio or Forma or wherever you do your simulations, you need to take care of that. But you can do it very quickly. The mesh is not good, but again, it takes you 1% of the time that it used to do. So it's a lot about generative AI is about managing expectation. And if one embraces that, I think it can be a really good tool. But again, this is not in live use yet. These are more like a theoretical test processes. The main use that we do, kind of like the battle tested, although we don't we use xFigura since a few months. The tool is relatively new, but it's already kind of like been integrated into the processes because, again, it does its job very well for us, is to provide a canvas for Gen AI tools. Kind of like start from something, do iteration, find the mood that you want, mix different moods and system, kind of like get an overview, and the system, of course, grows very much. And this is one of the nicest aspects of using the tool for us, that it takes a bit of the black box out of Gen AI, if you want, because everything is on the canvas. Images can be reused. They become kind of assets that you reuse. It becomes more of a process and less like a slot machine. And now we've seen kind of like a very good development using the tool, using Canvas that can be shared. It's also very easy to transform processes that are working good into templates for colleagues to use. And it allows access in one place to many different things. Like you have Gen AI instance from image to image to image, text to image, image to 3D model, image to video, all in one place. And just as an example, this is a canvas that we use to create a video, and this is the beginning. Like this is a model photo, and we kind of like spend a bit of time to figure out what should the process be for generating videos, and laying it out, kind of like giving a figuring out the steps needed for the video in detail. This is all in the canvas of xFigura. This is not a Miro board. This is all detailed there. And it all started from this image. Then we say, okay, we need to have this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot. So we went to generate a starting frame and end frame for all of them. And I think we can quickly, take a look at the video. And here, of course, you start imagining what do we want to show, what is the message of the video, and from that image, you kind of have the deconstruction aspect of figuring out what you want to show, generate the starting and ending frame for that, compositing them together. It's something that we would not been able to do before AI. This is not necessarily an xFigura feature, like there are other image to rendering video, but with xFigura it's nice to have it all in one place, kind of in an easy way that can also be shared. And going back to the original question, original issue of complexity, you've seen two tools that we're implementing to try to navigate complexity. On the one hand, the challenge is technology is evolving. How do we make the outcomes that the technology allows, the new outcomes that are possible through technological advancement, reachable, usable, sustainable, and manageable in a way. And this, I think, is the mission of many tools out there. We have found both in and there are, of course, pitfalls and traps on the way that not every tool can fulfill their promises. And but we find that both xFigura and Speckle are somehow making our lives easier, making our processes a bit easier. And I wish that you now give the listen to what Chuck and Daniel have to offer you. If you're not using the tools, you give them a try. And again, at HENN we're very open to collaboration. So if you think I'm dealing with kind of like the same issues, or I'm also thinking about these topics in a similar way, just reach out.
Awesome. I really like the animation that you guys made. Here we go. Have we got your screen? Did we lose your screen there? Was that me?
Yeah,
Oh
I
no.
thought we could
Okay. Cool.
have a little bit of a talk.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Guys, do put in any questions you have. Someone actually, we got one question. Does Xfigura give a dashboard on Miro like Speckle, or were they just screenshots, those ones?
No, those were screenshot. xFigura as canvas, as far as I know, cannot be embedded as iframes.
Yeah,
But
we'll bring the other guys on
yeah,
just to jump in if there's any other questions. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting how would you say you're using Speckle more for that kind of technical BIM side, data management, that kind of thing, but you're also using it a bit for the Miro concept stage? Like, do you find Speckle is kind of a bit everywhere?
yes, and
Yeah,
this last use as the nicest thing about this last use is that it happened without me even knowing about it. So we've had our Speckle server for since Speckle exists basically, and it always was always kind of like a tool that required a bit of getting into, because it used to be that you need to make your Dynamo script, Grasshopper script, you need to set up the connector from Power BI. Not everybody uses Power BI, or even you
yeah,
need to write your own code for the SDK. And if you are already into that computational coding space, Speckle is very easy to get into. Like it's very well documented. If you want the viewer that I showed before, it's 40 lines of code, 39 maybe. So but you already need to be in that slice
yeah.
of the population and architecture office that feels comfortable to do with computational design and with coding, with data structures and this kind of things. Um,
And
and
Xfigura, you're using also a bit of everywhere, or is it more at the concept stage? I love the diagram sequence that you had there. That was super cool. I mean, yeah, you went from diagram to kind of illustration to animation to full on render mode.
yeah, no, Xfigura is pretty much everywhere. There is a focus more into early phases, but interior design, which kind of like does very realistic and close to fabrication outputs, is also using it. We use it for programming to doing very high level concept stuff. We use it in competition. The visualization team uses it to deliver production rendering for doing upscaling and those kind of things. It's still we're still figuring out exactly where it fits, and also kind of like where we stop in D5 and where we begin with the xFigura, where maybe we go into Photoshop or like we are still kind of like hammering out exactly the details. Um, but it sees use across multiple phases, not restricted to early phases.
Yeah. Nice. Guys, do put your questions in the chat. I think we've got it always starts off quiet and then builds up. So if you think of something as we go, just put it in and we can always come back to it. But Emiliano, thank you. That was awesome to see what you guys are doing.
Great, nice to hear.
Even more curious to see more. So thank you. I think next up we are going to hand over to Chuck, right? I'll just unmute you. So I'm secretly muting you guys in the background here as the production manager.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chuck, I think maybe explain some of the stuff you'll show, and actually Daniel as well. Maybe just talk about what you'll touch on, and then Chuck will hand over to you.
Yeah. The presentation is kind of in two parts. Hopefully this is a chance for me to meet people that don't know much about Speckle already, or that like new xFigura, or look interested in how we're used together. So there'll be a brief introduction of the latest version of what is Speckle. Always a bit tough. And also I'll get into a bit more specifics of how to make some of the things you saw HENN show just a second ago. That's the model validation in particular, but also a number of features with dashboards. And like, what is Speckle? It's absolutely a tool for dashboarding and seeing model intelligence these days. I want to show kind of from nothing to something that looks like what HENN showed us a moment ago.
Cool. And Daniel, what are you going to be showing?
Yeah, so
Oh.
I'm gonna give a. You hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Awesome. So I'll give a little bit overview and introduction into what xFigura is. How does it work? What are like the main components that it has on the canvas? How do you use them? And then I'll do a little demo from some examples using the Speckle model that were provided by Emiliano. So I'll show a little bit of the dashboard, the whole canvas, and all the nodes as well.
Okay, exciting. There is one more question for Emiliano that I think would be good to kind of touch on. Emiliano, someone's asking for the video that you created, like what software did you use? And, you know, in terms of xFigura, what software do you find it enhances or even replaces? Like you mentioned, there's a bit of D5, for example. Do you see the teams like modeling, you know, using xFigura straight out of Rhino, or do you actually plug in a D5 image or something like that? But yeah, maybe talk through that sequence.
So the video was a composition of maybe 12, 14, maybe 20 shorter videos. Each of them was generated in xFigura. And then in Premiere, we did the composition, like from one end to the next one. And they were set up that each short video would end where the next video begins. And that was basically the input and output for the models in xFigura to generate the transitions. And the beginning and ending frame were generated in xFigura, starting all of them from the initial image that I showed. There was an image from the model, and that was kind of like the basics for generate all of the other frames.
It's quite amazing. It was like very consistent, you know, like
Yeah.
the design was very consistent. You weren't getting hallucinations or weird little bits.
Well, Daniel is going to go a bit into it, but there's been a massive really paradigm shift lately with models and how they can keep true to the structure image that you deliver. And as far as the other part of the question, which is very interesting, about what replaces and what it enhances. So it replaces all those tools that we didn't use before AI existed. So it replaces for us things like Magnific and Crea and Midjourney. It doesn't really replace things like Enscape or nowadays D5, because you still need to get out of your authoring software with something, or we still see an advantage of coming out of your authoring software with something that resembles render, and kind of like limit the number of steps that you do in the canvas.
Okay, nice. All right, guys, I think that's it. We'll now hand over to Chuck for the Speckle part. All right, I'll move us a little bit behind stage. Guys, if you have questions, just keep them coming. We'll pick them up as we go. We'll probably do a break in the middle where we'll do a little bit of Q&A and stuff between Chuck and Daniel, and then we'll jump on it. But yeah, Chuck, if you want to share your screen, we'll get out of your way. And I'll let you take it away in a sec.
Okay.
All good? All right.
Looking good.
Take it away.
All right. Hello everyone again. I'm Chuck, and like I said a second ago, I'm going to start with a brief what is Speckle, and then get into a bit more specifics of how to make what you saw HENN doing. But yeah, the eternal question of my time at Speckle and before my time at Speckle, you know, what exactly is Speckle? And if you've been following us from the beginning, a lot has happened over the last 6 months that has been a bit different than usual, but also, I would say, more committed to the goals we've had from the beginning. And so what that means in terms of like a definition for Speckle I would say that Speckle is the intelligent data layer for AEC these days, right? What we do is we take data out of your various disconnected programs, and we put it in a place where it can be something that goes to work for you, all right, instead of working against you. In terms of problems that involve data or problems that are on our mind these days, these are three that I think are at the forefront of our mind. One problem with data that you're working with in your models, either in Revit or otherwise these days, is that you would like to do some sort of QA/QC or like model data validation, but there's too many sources, or your options for doing that are heavily manual and difficult to scale or share after the fact. And model validation is something we'll talk about quite at length today because we're taking it quite seriously. On the other hand, you are all incredibly talented individuals, at least the people that I've met so far. But it's not traditionally been architecture firms' realm of expertise to also build software for their own data infrastructure. Right, so I see a lot of really unique, bespoke, and candidly repeated solutions, right, in silos in different firms, where you're solving part of the same problem over and over again in ways that are good for you, but are difficult to bring across the line sometimes. And even further, even some of the best solutions that I've seen in other firms are so bespoke or are so specific to your own workflows that you're still solving problems about, like, how do we look at our models? Do we know what our models are? And so when it comes time to ask bigger, data-flavored questions around how does this work with AI? How do I work with my historical data? How do I make sure I have the infrastructure to work with all those kinds of things at once? It's yet another thing you have to do on top of anything that you've managed to build, right? And if you've been with Speckle from the start, you'd understand, like, this has been a question on our mind from the beginning. If you're around for the streams and branches and the GitHub looking way, encoding your model and its history over multiple versions and making that accessible to you is our bread and butter. So all three of these problems for the next several months are on our mind in articulating, like, what our data layer is and how it helps you address those sorts of things. I like layer as a metaphor because it does show that we do have multiple parts that come together to pull off what I'm describing. Some you've seen before and some that are getting a lot more attention and love these days. And I just want to highlight what those are real quick for you guys. At the very base, like the very first job, anything you need to do in Speckle requires is getting it out of your various files or programs and into a Speckle format. Traditionally, these are things like the connectors that you might have seen installed inside your Revit and your Rhino, and we'll get into a second. There's a few different, more contemporary ways for doing that, integrating with other platforms like ACC. After that, the normalized structure of the Speckle data schema is a significant part of what makes us, I think, useful and scalable to either further parts of your data pipeline or for these questions around how to use us with AI, right? That anything you pull out of your various sources of data, by the time it gets to Speckle, it looks like Speckle. A wall is comparable to a wall, a floor is comparable to a floor, either within the version of something or between versions across different programs. Once things are just data flowing through the pipes, our automation engine also becomes attractive to people with access to, like Emiliano said, access to working with code inside of AEC. So that's your Python or your C# integrations, or a little bit of JavaScript, right? If your team has the savvy to interact with code, interact with data from code, we have a robust platform for kind of extending or triggering work in reaction to data flowing through Speckle. A little more concretely, that looks like when someone sends something from Revit into Speckle, you can trigger a function in C# or Python to do some sort of work after the fact. This leads to a lot of, I would say, like robust pipelines, like we just saw with HENN on their model validation, where they have hundreds of rules that need to run every time something comes through. They want to, check that and see that within Speckle, but they also want to store that in Speckle so it can be piped further on to something in, say, like Power BI or larger data lakes like Databricks. And then we have our precious and beautiful web application. All the data, all the numbers, all these big bits of geometry. It is geometry, and we do need to and want to see it at the end of the day. And so the web application traditionally has been the viewer, but also in the last 6 months there's been several important improvements to what you can do with the viewer and how you can interact within it, right? But all of this is the data layer, right, or the things that are only possible because we're taking your data from various programs and putting it in one place, in one shape, and that can be used to inspect and glean some sort of insight from. We like talking about Lego blocks these days. Speckle still has a lot of different ways to express or inspect those tools once they're in the data layer, and I'll talk about those here in just a second. Right, but the goal with everything is to provide you with the tools that you need to get your data into Speckle and get the insight out that you need. Unfortunately, no matter how many times I talk about Speckle or give some version of that, the question right after what I just said is still, okay, but what is Speckle? And I can't hold it against anybody. It is many things, right, and many things to many people. But what I like about the data layer metaphor is that it puts front and center what we're good at and what you definitely get no matter where you're heading with Speckle. And that's your data sitting in one place and visible in different things like dashboards or the viewer, or which we'll show in a second, types of presentations. And so that's what I'm going to do here real quick. I'm going to talk a little bit more concretely, not what are our goals, what is data, what is a data layer, just a few of the features that are offered within Speckle that you can use once you do have your data on our platform. One bucket of things that we are quite proud of these days is the ability for online collaboration once your models live inside of Speckle. And that starts and is all only possible because of the, I would say, best-in-class 3D viewer in the industry. Alex and his team have a lot to be proud of here, I would say, that there's very few, or very few people can claim to be able to process and inspect such large amounts of data with such smoothness, power, and live collaboration, right? This is what we'll be talking about for a little bit. You can take a model, you can look at it inside of Speckle, and you can do all sorts of things from filtering, trimming it down, commenting on it, and so on. Right, and presentations, I think, are where most people start. Emiliano was talking about this a second ago. You can be inside of your Miro or your other collaboration software. You can take a screenshot and you can share it around. We saw enough of this going on with Speckle that we wanted to provide a first-class opportunity to do so. That those screenshots, that those various views that are significant inside of Speckle are something that you should also be able to inspect and present and discuss from within Speckle. So these days you can walk up to your 3D model viewer, you can pre-configure a number of set views with filters and section boxes and so on, and come back to them later for that presentation, either live to your team or asynchronously by sending it off as a link. Commenting has also been something that is a nice experience within the viewer. Similar to design review workflows that you might see in programs like Revisto, people find it valuable to have the 3D model, but also have your comments and your issues in the context of the 3D model. More than just an image, you can tag a particular item or a set of items with things that need to change and come back to them later in the model, like so. This one seems silly, but is a little bit nerdy, but I think it definitely deserves a little bit of a spotlight. Because data is so varied and high resolution on Speckle, we spent a lot of time investing in the ability to filter that down really well, right? That you don't always care about everything that you've ever put in the model, even though it is something that you do want to work with. Sometimes you do want to colorize your building by the different levels inside of it. Sometimes you do only care to cut down your presentation to a particular floor that you care about. And our filtering tools in the last 6 months have improved quite significantly in both the kind of things you can express and the combinations of things that you can express. This gets really important because one of the approaches that Speckle takes to large amounts of data has always been that we think it's important to be able to federate or pull in models from various sources. A lot of the time that's split by domain. Your architectural models split with your site models and maybe your engineering models. But that's also by a source program, right? You can look at a Revit model with the Rhino model in the same viewer with all the same interactions that we've described. And so when data reaches a certain level of fidelity or size, it is important to be able to, filter it down, cut it up, make sure that you're looking at just the things that you care about. Another thing, and we just saw it with Emiliano a second ago, that people were doing a lot that we wanted to support in a high quality first class way, is the ability to not just take an image, but also mark it up within Speckle and share it. Andrew and his team spent a lot of time in improving this over the last 6 months and making it something generally available. It's something I think you should all give a little play because everyone has access and it is fun, even if you don't have a large presentation in front of you. Similar to screenshots and presentations, And this allows you to grab a particular view, grab a particular section, add a little bit of markup, and save it as part of your Speckle project, right? Nothing wrong with what Emiliano did a second ago, where you take a screenshot, you mark on it inside of your clipping tool, and you drop it in your Miro board. But once a markup like this lives inside of your Speckle project, you always know where it is, you always know where to find it, and it can be used further downstream in things like dashboards or your presentations. Picking up things like markups has a similar motivation to our recent work on issues. We've had a lot of building blocks for things that can kind of get you close to something that looks like design review, right? But there were a lot of bits missing for what we might call like more serious design review, or design review on a larger team. And so something that we've done quite recently is we've taken the commenting feature that we've always had, we've given it a facelift, we've improved the backend technology, and we've reimagined it as an issue tracking capability, right? You can now make your comment, but you can also add a label, a priority, a number of assignees, and you have one place within the viewer where you can come back and say, okay, we had to fix these things last time. Emiliano drew a nice drawing over the section, and we needed to fix certain things there. Did we do that? Did we not? All again within your Speckle project. This is part of an initiative to make sure that if you do use Speckle for design review, you can do as much of that as possible within Speckle, because the information is there. What's gotten most of my attention in most recent history is our ability to take the information that's inside of the data layer and resurface it in intelligent ways, I think I would say, right? Or surface business intelligence from high quality 3D data that might just be sitting in a file somewhere else otherwise. And namely, that's in the dashboarding features in intelligence, right? What dashboards allow you to do is ask very quick and common questions of your models in what I would say is like a native way to the program that it came from. If you've ever worked with Power BI or used our Power BI connector, or built your own custom dashboarding tool, there's often a lot of friction in the tools, the questions that are immediately available to you and the questions that you need to answer. If you do want to take a Speckle model, break it down by level, and ask a little bit about how the areas are grouped within those levels, Power BI will let you express that. But it's not pretty, and it's even less pretty if you have to do anything more than that. And so what we put out now, and has become generally available to everyone in the last several weeks, is what we think is our best foot forward for doing and answering questions that are most common and are most important to you when you're on Speckle. So what you're seeing here is as simple as it looks, and we'll see something like it with model validation in a second. If I want to know what levels are in my building, what makes them up, and how it's performing across various options, we have widgets off the side that you can grab off the shelf and attach to your models as they come through Speckle. But there's a whole wide world of widgets that's rapidly changing, widgets being added, widgets being removed, widgets being improved, right? And so the amount of expressiveness in here, I think, is more than we've ever had on Speckle before, where yes, the filters and the viewer allow you to glean particular types of insights. It's been very nice to be able to ask data-driven questions, surface those charts and those comparisons, all still alongside the 3D viewer that you've known for so long. This has turned, I would say this has been inspired by, and is also hoping to continue to empower a lot of prior art in the space of dashboarding with Speckle. There was a really fun moment at the Speckle community meetup where Allies and Morrison presented this in particular, where we got excited because we were thinking about it, they got excited because they were already doing it, and I think Jonathan grabbed the mic in the Q&A and did a sort of, like, would you be happy if you could make a dashboard, this sort of thing? But ever since then, we've improved the dashboarding capabilities first class, but also continue to want to support you in these tools that you're building with our data layer. So Allies and Morrison is an example here that I'm quite thrilled to still see, where they take Rhino data, pipe it through Speckle and into custom Power BI visualization. Herzog and Demiron have another, although a slightly different take, where it's not one large bit of information that they want to inspect. It's a wide kit of parts, different versions of the same element, or different, I would say, variations of the same element, taken from Rhino through Speckle and then inspected in a Power BI-like environment. And last, I had to include this too, right? HENN is a champion of doing this kind of work. The story we like to repeat is that they used a dashboarding feature to surface information from Revit into Power BI, which is what we just saw a second ago, but for the express purpose of landing a bit, right, of proving like we have a special capability that very few people, I would say nobody else could do as well at the time, all powered by Speckle and now powered by Speckle Intelligence in first class kind of way. And the last bit of what is Speckle, and this one I'll have to move on from a little bit quickly, but is near and dear to my heart. We have always been and will continue to be a developer platform. We, I would say, are a bunch of dorks, a bunch of nerds historically, that are now picking tougher problems to answer in serious ways, right? In the way I talk about design review and the way I talk about intelligence. We're starting now from like what problems are we solving and can we solve them for you at your scale? But the Speckle you knew from the beginning, with a nice API that called models branches, and that offered a series of nice SDKs that we continue to garden, is still there, right? And that's expressed in a few different features that are still available, and I'd love to continue to talk to you about over time. It's what Emiliano was talking about a second ago. The viewer is open source and is something that you can extend. That if you do want to work with those 40 lines of code to view your model within your dashboard or your other projects, we have still the best-in-class viewer to work with Speckle data. And these days, if you have an idea that you want to build with a viewer, but maybe not quite the time or not quite the team or not quite clarity on what could be done, we are all ears to talk about what you want to build, and we want to help you build that together. Another thing is that we still, and recently sort of reinvented, right, our data model from the V2 era into the V3 era, where the changes are all about allowing the ability to view it and the ability to interact with it and the ability to shuttle it between places to be the first and most important thing we can do, where V2 might have had a number of different motivations, and if you ever worked with it, a widely different types of shapes across different programs. And again, the APIs in code are something that are always up to date, always being checked and always being worked on with people like Emiliano. Can you make what you need to? No. Why? Let's figure that out. And of course, my beloved, some of you who may have already spoken directly about this, the automation platform is maybe like the holy grail or the escape hatch, or like, if nothing else, Speckle can always do what you need it to with a little bit of love or a little bit of code, right? Intelligence is incredibly powerful these days, and I think a great way to do things first class off the shelf. But there's nothing stopping you from doing a few kickflips if you really want to, and that's what Automate is here for. And if you ever have anything you want to do in that vein, similar to what I was saying about the viewer, just have to say the words, I want to work with Automate, and I will find you. Right? So that's a little bit more detail on like what is Speckle, what have we done for the last 6 months, and where we're going. We have a bunch of wonderful partners that have informed and made the Speckle we are today what it is. Right? If there are a million different bespoke problems in AEC with data, working with you all has been the way that we've narrowed down what's the most important, what can we actually do well for you, and where should we go next. So quick plug, in case it's not obvious, website is speckle.systems. You can sign up for free and start messing with your data today. And you might have a question of like, what should I do first, right? And that's the second part of my presentation here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a workshop in how to use Speckle, how to do what we just saw with HENN, and I'll be starting with our dashboarding feature. Just a little bit of dead air while I switch back over to the other side of the presentation. Okay. So what we're looking at here is the Speckle interface when you want to work with your data, or if you've uploaded something from a connector, or when you want to do anything within Speckle. These days it looks something like this. You are presented with a workspace and a number of projects within it. A project represents a collection of effectively anything you'd like it to, but often it has a one-to-one mapping with a project that you're working on in your firm. Projects are collections of models that can come from any number of places. And so before you can do anything, you need to make sure that you get your model inside of Speckle. Traditionally, this has been with things like the connectors or the extensions that you can install inside of your Revit or your Rhino. But today I want to highlight one of the newest and I think the most large firm, serious, large-scale data ways to work with your get data into Speckle, and that's our integration with ACC. If you don't know what ACC is, congratulations, but if you do, my commiserations sometimes. It's a wonderful set of tools for collaboration with Revit and other Autodesk software. It's also the place where a lot of people collaborate, either within teams or without on other teams. But what we've done is we've allowed you to establish a direct link between information that's flowing into your ACC and a model within Speckle. And so that what that looks like inside of your project is when you go to make a new model, you're presented with the ability to sync from ACC. And what this does is it connects you to your ACC hub, your project inside of ACC. It'll ask you to log in and connect to the projects that you have access to, and then when you come back into Speckle proper, you'll be able to select any number of models from your ACC folder structure, and when you go to push a new version into Revit, or when someone else on your team pushes a new version into that model inside of Revit, those changes will be reflected inside of Speckle. Right, so that's kind of like a fire and forget, one-time setup, but permanent connection between data that's coming into ACC and into Speckle. Because some of these models are quite large, or there might be a lot of data that you want to put in at once, I'm going to kind of wave my hand and skip past that part and say we've set up a connection between a project in ACC and some IFC files that are flowing into it. Right, so what we're seeing here is a model from HENN, generated in IFC, stored inside of ACC, and we can imagine was pushed at some recent date and synced across into our project. I've jumped into the dashboarding, the intelligence platform, to start asking questions of it by adding in my model as a data source, and now you see something you've seen before, which is the viewer, but now this acts as more than just a window into the actual 3D data. It's also what we're calling a data source, right? Or it's a 3D model, yes, but it's also a bunch of elements with properties and values that we want to inspect and ask questions of, right? And so in order to do that, we offer you a library of widgets here at the left. And these are always fun to tinker with. I don't know, kind of scratch a corner of my brain that's very similar to my first days learning in Grasshopper. There's an almost overwhelming number of options that you can start to tinker with and see what would it do if I did drop in a section or a AI render, right, or an element count. But the problem we're going to solve today is how do we recreate a model validation dashboard that's similar to what Emiliano was showing a second ago. We have an ISC model. We have a number of rules that we know we want to check either from IDS or otherwise, but definitely against an IFC model. And we want to make sure that this new model that just came through ACC is up to par, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a way for us to kind of filter down or interact with our model. So this is one big model, but I'm not always going to be asking questions of the entire thing. One thing I'm definitely going to want to be able to do is ask questions of sections of the building like its levels. And so to do so, I'm going to drop down a pivot table, or a table that will start to show a collection of elements within the model, but grouped by some important property. And the property that I'm going to group our model data by is the story that it's on. This interface and most interfaces inside of intelligence are dynamic in the sense that we can search for specific properties that we want to work with, but they're also aware of what's already inside of your 3D model. And so you can see I started typing building story, and it brought it up to front and center for me, so I knew, like, okay, I am working with a property that definitely exists inside of the project. Once you do that, you'll start to see the elements in your model grouped by the property that you chose, and what I think is kind of fun, some live hover effects, right? This is something I'll probably say 100 times before this presentation is over, but only because I think it's one of the coolest part of intelligence, is that everything remains contextually related to your data source or the 3D model that you're working with. Right? Yes, I'm showing you a table of elements, but they also know what they are. Right? So I can hover it, and it can show me things in the viewer about it, or I can click on it, and we can start to filter down the things that we're looking at based on, which I think is the nice part, a slice or a grouping of the data that we've already decided is important, and that's in the building stories. So this is effectively like an interface that I've created from the widgets that we can use to start interacting, either looking at the model or filtering it down to certain levels. But we're here to do some model validation, right? So I need to start expressing what kind of checks I want to do and getting some results for those kind of questions. And to do so, I use what we call the property checker widget. What this does, I'll just show real quick, is it lets you define a rule or a check against any number of the properties inside of the model that you've chosen as a data source, right? So one thing I can do is add a few conditions, right? So I can say, first, I want to filter down to all of the elements in my model where the IFC type is IFC roof, right? So we filtered it down to particular size of the model. I also want to make sure that for all of those roof elements, the building story property at the very least exists, right? This is a simple check, but kind of just to demonstrate that we're working with data in the model. That it's silly, but it is important to verify that, okay, like 100% of my models, 100% of my elements inside of my model at least adhere to the fact that a roof needs to know where it is. But rules can be quite fine-grained. I think you saw from the interface, you can add any number of clauses or questions that you want to answer. So here I can add another condition, right? First, I want to get every single element where the IFC type is IFC slab. I still want to make sure that the property building story exists. But I also want to make sure that it follows an internal naming convention, right? So I want to make sure that the name of the element contains the prefix of IBD underscore, right? Or any number of prefixes or things that might be meaningful to you. And you'll see that, okay, only 44% of the elements in my model are adhering to that convention. This is also useful even when it's not a check, but when it's a categorization. So you could say something like, I want to know all of them that have a classification of some type and all of them that don't. And because all of the widgets are context aware or know what they're related to, right, I can click on any of these checks and immediately get shown which things are complying, which things aren't complying, and I can even colorize them so I get a pretty clear, quick read on where things might be having trouble. We think this is particularly nice in live presentations where you know all your data, you know generally the kind of questions that you want to ask, but you're not totally sure what the person in the room is going to ask you. You guys can explore together, okay, like what is passing, what is failing on the top floor, and why, right? And we think that intelligence offers some of the best live design review, in-person presentation experience for these kind of questions. I just want to show one more rule about like how you can interact with various properties. Another thing that you can ask for your model is like a numeric value, not just an existence or a name. You can also add a condition like, I want to know for everything of where the IFC type is equal to IFC window, I want to make sure that the overall width is at the very least greater than some minimum value, so we didn't accidentally model things that are unrealistic, right? And you'll see that, okay, 98% of my model passes this check. Which ones don't? I can click on it and get shown immediately where and why. Similarly, you can filter it down. Any combination of these checks can be used as filters if you really want to drill into a particular room on a particular floor of a particular model. So that's all well and good, right? But I think what Emiliano showed and what is true in most cases is that you don't have 3 rules that you're trying to check. You have hundreds, or I saw the other day for the first time, thousands, which was kind of insane, but is real and is something that we want to be able to support. So recently what we've released is an improvement to the model checking capability that aims to do just that. That is meant to support checking these types of rules, but at a larger scale, or rule sets that are bigger then one or two that you want to configure at a time. And where that lives is here. There's a new button on the side for model validation. And so the first part of doing this sort of larger scale model validation on intelligence is that you need to define the entire rule set that you're working with. And we find that a lot of times people enter the problem of model validation on Speckle from something like this, right? You want to understand what can my rules express, how do they interact with the model, and so you generate a dashboard that might have like 3 or 5 or maybe up to like a dozen rules that demonstrate what you need, but are not the entire set. And so what we've added is the ability to grab any of these property checker components and sort of promote them, right, or elevate them into a rule set. So you'll see in the sidebar here, when I click on a certain property check and move over to the edge, I can save it as a rule, and you can create a new rule set, and there you have it. In the sidebar here for model validation, we now have a rule set with just the one rule. So real quick, I can go add the other rules to existing rule sets. Same one here. Save condition as a rule. All right. And so here we've kind of smoothly transitioned from a visualization of just a few rules to working in more of a larger or bulk rule set kind of mode. And I'll show you real quick what that lets you do. Once you have a rule set that lives inside of the model validation universe, you can drag it onto the canvas just like any other widget. And you'll see that the interface has a bit more information than the single checks that we were looking at a second ago. Right. The first readout is about an overall model validation score. Right. This is the amount of passing across all of the elements and across all of the rules inside of your model. There's also some brief reporting, aggregate reporting on like what are the rules that are failing the most, what are the rules that are doing the best, and in general how bad might a rule be failing across the model. You can also go back and inspect the rules that are feeding into the check or the report that you're looking at. You'll see this is quite similar to the individual checks that we were looking at a second ago. It's for this particular rule, how are we doing? And this one still is not doing so hot. There's also a few other conveniences around tagging the severity of different errors that'll help you further down the line if you want to distinguish between something that like needs to be addressed now or something that might be more of a warning or just kind of a heads up. This is something that we'll come back to later. And I think that one opportunity that looking at a bunch of rules offers you is that you can also ask more composite questions of those rules. It's not, does this one check pass across my building? You can also ask, how do all my rules perform against this type of thing or this part of my model, right? So what I can do is I can break down the overall 88% passing to some sort of subcategory, right? So similar to what we've done up here with the pivot table component, I can ask my rule check to be expressed in terms of, okay, what happens if I group everything by building story? How are they performing? And you get a readout like this, where you can see that this floor is doing a whole lot better than this floor down here. And we think that this gives you some really good instant feedback on, you know, in a world where you do have 1,000 rules that you're rolling against a massive model, you don't always have time to perfectly address everything. We think it's quite useful to be able to see, okay, what at least is the worst? Are we generally okay? And if this thing is so bad, can we understand why? You can also, depending on your project, jump between whether it's the overall percentage of breakages or in absolute terms, right? Maybe this is really bad because there's only 10 things and they're not doing so hot. Maybe it's more concerning that this level has a bunch of elements and most of them are not doing so hot, right? The perceptive amongst you will also notice that this starts to look similar to some of the images that HENN was showing. I think this was worked on, this particular view was worked on quite closely with HENN as a way to make sure we can answer some of the same questions that a firm of their size and seriousness would like to answer. So I kind of went right past it, but it is one of the newest, and I think one of the features with the most potential for making this useful to those of you that are working with IFC. We've recently rolled out the ability not to generate your rules one at a time, not to generate your rule set like one particular set of conditions at a time, but by importing rules that you might already have access to inside of your current validation processes, right? IDS is I think the most common one I see when working with IFC files. We've also recently rolled out some provisions for working with Kobe data. And for those of you that are comfortable working inside of JavaScript and inside the Speckle SDKs, we're also consuming any rule JSON files or TSV files that you might have generated on the previous versions of the model validation app. A little bit of technical jargon to say that what we want to do is support all of the validation rules that you need to do, and we want to make it as easy as possible for you to walk up to Speckle, connect yourself to your IFC files and models, and answer every single question you need to about the model validation that you're trying to undertake. And to sort of close the loop on why it's nice here, as opposed to maybe other places, if I were to go back inside of my Speckle project, if I were to go back inside of ACC and push a new version of that model into Speckle, the dashboard is live, the dashboard is reactive, the dashboard is looking at the latest version of the model as it exists on Speckle. And so you can create these nice project homepages where someone on your team sets up the thing that's checking all of the different rules and has the different filters ready to go for the way that you care to review your model validation projects. And all that needs to be done to get a new report or to get the latest data is just to push a new version into Speckle and come back to this dashboard. This is kind of our latest offering for model validation at Speckle. A lot of our attention for the near future is going to be about making sure that the IDS support, the Kobe support, and the expressiveness of the rules is exactly what it needs to be. If you do give this a try, and I think you should in the next few days, you'll probably also see that the amount of things that you can express inside of the conditions is always changing. We're always open to this kind of feedback. I think that we've worked with people like Emiliano for some time to put this out into the world, but that doesn't mean that this thing will never stop changing. Do give it a try and reach out. We think that model validation is an important problem to solve, but also incredibly multifaceted. Right? We haven't even started to talk about geometric property checks yet, and this is something just as important. But I'm going to take a beat there, and I am not watching the feed. If there are any questions about model validation, that would be a good time, because I'm going to sort of shift gears to talk about other things you can do with dashboards, but do want to make sure we give model validation a little bit of attention.
Yeah, there's a super interesting stuff. It's got my the BIM juices flowing. But yeah, there's a good host of questions actually. There's one, I think it's one long question over a bunch of posts, but let me just go through them. I guess as a general one, do you see these tools capable of handling early design stages with real architecture precision, such as the correct floor counts, program fidelity, and accurate context? I'm not sure if she's referring to xFigura and rendering stuff, but I guess for this, it's just doesn't matter what stage you're at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also, have lowered the barrier to doing this kind of work that traditionally might not have been done because it was so difficult and hard to justify, right? But yeah, any stage in resolution, once it's in Speckle, you can ask questions about the properties that are there.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to some of these because they're for Emiliano, which we'll bring back in a sec. One question: can Speckle handle bigger projects such as master plans? I think you did show a few master plans, but like city scale, I guess, is there a limit?
Yeah, absolutely. We are finding the limits more than ever these days, but the short answer is yes, we can. And not only can we are actively improving, raising the ceiling, but I'm going to have to be a little bit coy about that. But yes, Speckle today can handle, I think, anything you can throw at it. The first limit you'll probably hit is the memory on your own machine, because we will work through that.
Okay, that's good. So almost unlimited. Someone's got an interesting one. Is there the dashboard thing you've shown in Miro? Someone's asking, do you have one for a Teams chat for project managers that do not normally have BIM-related software installed, for example? I guess you could just go onto the web browser, but
Yeah, it's hard to say. I haven't worked in with teams very much. Um,
I
it sounds
wonder
like
if
there's like
that
widgets
one,
in chat.
maybe the confusion was you can view Speckle just on the web at any moment rather than just through Miro. I don't know if that was a misunderstanding there, but
Yeah, dashboards are also embeddable. We've seen them inside of Miro. I have to imagine what's in Teams is very similar to that. So,
it's
yes,
possible.
possible, possible.
Everything's possible
Everything's
with
possible.
enough time. Um, Maybe talk about the uploading and refreshing. Someone's asking like when do you change, when a model changes, does everything change or do you have to refresh or upload it? How does that work?
So this is configurable by you because I think both cases are equally valid. When you go to add a data source to your dashboard, you can either grab a particular version if that's the exact thing that you care to inspect, or you can add a data source that stays up to date with the latest version. Right. So depending on the kind of project you're in, both of these things are possible and something you might choose, but it is up to you.
I'm just going to bring Emiliano up because I think he might have an answer to one of the questions. Have you guys used Speckle in Teams? Is that
It's in principle a website that you can embed. So just like you can basically add a tab in Teams with a website as you would embed Notion, for instance.
right? Right.
It doesn't have a dedicated app like Power BI does as an option, but it's a website. So
Okay. Perfect. There you go.
yeah.
There you go. People are using it. Maybe last one. Um, is there any, I guess the question is there any part for suggesting what has already been done to elevate the performance, not in the case of wrong naming elements, but more in specific sections? Not sure if I quite answered, but is there any tips, I guess, on performance, like how the model runs in the cloud? Is that maybe the question?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll answer two ways if performance is a concern. The first is again my koi, it won't be a concern soon. And then the answer that you can do today is that federation is still a really important part of any workflow for a large project. Right, if you are working with something that literally does push the limits of your browser memory, there's nothing wrong with sending maybe like 5 different speckled models that represent different parts of your site and pulling those in piecemeal into a dashboard. Um, so yes, there are different ways to work with that kind of a problem.
Nice. Okay, guys, keep the questions coming. We won't go off on too much of a tangent, but Chuck, I'll let you pick up from where you left. But yeah,
Okay.
keep them coming, guys.
Cool. Yeah, thanks all. But yeah, so yeah, model validation getting a lot of attention today because we're putting a lot of attention into improving this and making sure it's something that does what we says it does. Right. This is very much where we want to be. And the tidbit that I'll leave with you, and that you should definitely reach out to us if it's at all intriguing. It's not just model validation of your project; it's model validation of your portfolio or project over time. Right. That I want to come back to what I sort of opened with. That the history of your model, the intelligence between changes, the fact that when you send a version to Speckle, you're holding on to the previous version, opens up an entire world of opportunities that we're starting to unlock with larger and larger firms. So do reach out if model validation over time gets you at all excited. The last bit I want to show is another, I think, really good use case for Speckle intelligence. And that's, I want to show a little bit more about what I meant by I think it's really good for live presentations. Right, that there's a lot of provisions in here for not just looking at your data, but also on the fly, diving into it, reacting to it, changing it based on what you're kind of talking about in a given meeting. One of the meetings that I think goes really well inside of a dashboard is a design option review. Right? You can imagine either a moment in time when someone is pushing things from your a Rhino model or is generating a bunch of models inside a Grasshopper, or even further, a workflow that is much more sophisticated and that it involves a lot of stakeholders and a lot of data coming through ACC. that if you do have a lot of moments in time when you are reviewing a new design option or a new iteration of the project, say like every week or every 2 weeks, dashboards are a great place to have a standard way to revisit those versions and compare them on the fly, right? So I'll just show from nothing what that might look like with some of the cubes that Emiliano was showing a moment ago. In a blank dashboard, the first question you need to answer is still, what data are you working with? So I've jumped into the project. I'm grabbing one of the options for our design review. Looks something like this. Very cute, but is it the cutest it can be? We'll find out. I need to go grab another model, option number 2. And then our last cutie is cutie number 3. Right, and so you have a bunch of models. They have any number of data that you want to compare within them. And we've added some provisions for making that as easy as possible. And one of my favorites, it's a little silly, but I do think it brings us to a different level of fun and seriousness, as you can just sync the cameras between the different models, right? So kind of a little bit easier way to compare either particular views or just shared interesting angles of the options that you're trying to compare. But intelligence is not just a collection of viewers, it's also about looking at data that you or values that you do want to compare. And so another button tab on the side that we haven't spoken much about yet, but is really important for that kind of work, is the properties library at left. For any property across any of the models that you sent, either native to Rhino or stuff that you might be computing in Grasshopper, you can ask, like, what is it? It's a very simple question, but often really informative, depending on what that thing is, right? So I can go over here, and I can ask for something like the area of the floors of the model. I am told right now in aggregate area across all the different models that I have presented, but what I can also do is I can change this into a comparison mode. Right, so what that does is it tells me the value of that property for the particular option that it represents. And we have these nice quick comparison badges, right? So you can know that this one is exactly how much smaller, this one is exactly how much smaller, and kind of choose which one is your baseline and which one you're comparing to. You can do that for any number of properties, right? So I think here's another one, some differences between them. Right, and widgets know their context, right, for the 100th time. And that's why when you hover some of these values, it brings you right back to the model that it's referencing. So you can ask for a little bit of a comparison. You can say, I do care about this one as we're like scrolling through the model. And if someone asks you a question about what is up with the number of floors inside of all of our options, you didn't quite prepare it. If you had a PDF, you didn't have the values ready to go. But here you can literally grab it off the shelf and figure it out together. The last little bit I'll show about what makes presentations kind of nice and fun is this little guy. Is the dual viewer. If you're comparing various options, you have your models side by side, you have the values that you care about, but what you can also do is you can literally select 2 things. Right, so here's our option 1, here's our option B, or 3, oops. And in the split viewer, we put them side by side, and you can do, I think, something that gets everyone a little bit too excited, and drag a line and switch between them, right? I think this one is a bit of a crowd pleaser because 1, it's a lot of fun, and 2, when you do have high resolution data, you can do some pretty incredible visualizations of, say, the facade next to the structure, or literal parts of a building and options, and very quickly both jump between or compare them in a quick way. That's still next to the data and the questions that you're trying to ask, right? So all of this are things that you can move around a little bit, pop out into your presentation, and bring with you as you want to ask different questions of them. That's about that on design option comparison. This data came from Rhino and had a certain amount of data already inside of it. But those of you that have worked with the Grasshopper connector, you may be used to workflows where it's not just sending the geometry as is directly from Rhino, you can also do your own computations in your Grasshopper script, send them up into the dashboard, and start comparing intrinsic values of the model and pre-computed values of the model for your design option comparison. With that, I think I'm going to start winding down with the workshopy demo of dashboards. I'm going to give a quick scroll through the sidebar here and try to see if anything catches somebody's eye. You want to see a widget that you might not have seen already. But barring that, I think the best thing any of you guys can do now is just go pick this up. Everyone that walks into Speckle, free or otherwise, has access to intelligence and the ability to upload your files, either via a file drop or a connector, and start asking questions of it and playing with it inside the dashboards. More is coming, but this is our kind of first foray into allowing you to glean some intelligence from the data that comes through Speckle.
This is really cool. I've not seen this before, actually, like this kind of like modular approach. So I can see this being really useful, particularly in that early stage, but also the later stages.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was trying to see if there was any other widgets in there that could be cool. What's a good one?
I think if this was a Revit model, a lot of the Revit widgets are pretty immediately informative. I actually don't know what will happen, but I don't think much. So let's just see. It's like it's looking for some Revit data.
Massy kind of level, right?
Yeah.
I did see you've also, there is some, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but you got some rendering tools as well, potentially, right? There's some connections to that, but don't want to go down
steal any thunder. Yeah, is it?
Go down a rabbit hole there, but map and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it seems cool. What about image? Just you can just drop images in. So
yeah.
I mean, I know it's kind of like a dumb one because it's like just stuck there, but you could at least like create this as a, I don't know, something for the client or for the team, or
Yeah, exactly. It seems silly at first, but it's actually, people find it quite nice to either label or orient, or a lot of the time other parts of the team have made renders for these massing options and they want to show them side by side with the model. So a simple image upload can get you quite far with your presentation.
Yeah, I was using Speckle quite a lot with Facet, where we had these like incredible BIM models where, for those who don't know, Facet like, fabricate houses, and they are the architect, the contractor, and the manufacturer all in one. So the BIM models are just like, packed full of stuff. But Speckle was incredibly useful. I wasn't even touching on this, but just as a communication tool with the people on site, right? Because they were just able to open up the model on their phone or flick around it. We could create some views, some specific, views where you can see certain things. Just the viewer on its own is incredibly useful, and that's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Right. Yeah. It makes everything else possible. Imagine anything that you would have done with the issues or the views or the filtering inside of the viewer. It's all still there, but it's something we want to be able to offer quite quickly, and with some nice graphs inside of intelligence as well.
Nice.
But okay, I think I need to pass the microphone or maybe we're gonna take a breather.
Yeah, let's bring everyone back on stage. We'll bring Daniel and Emiliano. We'll have. So guys, we usually can do like a little break before we're gonna jump into the AI side of things, image generation, 3D or video, whatever you're gonna create, Daniel. Well, I'm excited to see it. There is a couple questions. Let me just see. Chuck, a question concerning the model validation / property checker. Can one set up something like a unit testing workflow? Would that be via C# in the automate layer? Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sorry, wait, there's a follow-up. It's a follow-up question. I would also like to rule set option My question was more of for validation that's ultimately run in the background after changes have been submitted. So
Yeah, this is exactly what automate is for, and I think you'll find that a lot of the model validation I showed is secretly powered by that. And what's nice about what you're describing is, especially when it comes to geometric rules, there's nothing stopping you from augmenting the model validation with your own scripts that check, like, and this is, I think, what Emiliano and their team are doing, is running the validation not through just the widget in the dashboard, but through a function on automate proper. This is stuff that you can both surface in other places, view in the viewer, and also I think what you're doing, Emiliano, is piping it onto another place where you want to inspect the rule sets. So a lot of words to say yes, you absolutely can, you should, and you should reach out so I can show you how. There's a lot of different good ways to do it.
and where's the best way to reach out, on LinkedIn or anything else?
I'll type my email in the chat. Can I do that? Do I have a... Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to chat and then go to public chat, you can release your email to the world.
Here
Be
we go.
careful though.
Yeah, yikes.
There you go.
Yeah. Reach out there. Yeah.
Speckle.systems, and you can
Yeah.
endlessly bug him. Well, don't
Yes.
endlessly bug him, but
Uh, or if you just say the words, I want to use automate within a 10-mile radius of me, I will find you. Yeah, so
he's kind of like Batman.
yeah, we might
Speckle
not be so
man.
lucky. Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Guys, we can take a little break. We can crack on. What do you guys feel? Do you fancy a little 5-10 minute coffee break, and then we kick off with Daniel?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're gonna take a little 5-10 minute break. Then we'll come back. Do put your questions in the chat if we're at the break. Otherwise, we'll jump into xFigura straight after this.
Very nice.
All right, so we'll come back at around, what is it, 4:50? Well, let's say we'll come back at 5 o'clock here, 5 o'clock here in UK time.
Okay.
Wherever you are, come back at the hour.
Yes. All right. Catch you
All right.
soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll hide everyone. And we'll put a little banner up. All right, guys, we will start to pick things back up. Let's see where the guys are at. All right, we'll bring them onto stage in just a second and get back going. We'll bring in Daniel. Here he is.
Hello, hello.
Chuck.
Hey.
And Emiliano. All right. I think there was a couple small observations, I guess, but yeah, obviously, Chuck, with the Speckle side of things, this is where you can really unleash AI to go and just go nuts on your model, your BIM model, and access all these things, like validate some of these aspects. Yeah, maybe just give a little bit of a sprinkle of that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the idea. And where we've seen the most success with large firms lately is beyond even just the 3D data. It's very nice to be able to normalize your 3D data in Speckle and start working with it in any of the ways I described. But what's been really cool to see is when you start to merge normalized 3D data with otherwise already tabular business intelligence, business data. So that's stuff about the project, stuff about cost, stuff that you were already tracking throughout your firm around like where things are coming from, what kind of materials are being used. There's a few different examples I can try to pull out of the air, but the idea is, yes, it's cool to do a lot of maybe AI ready things with your speckled data, but it's the marriage of that with data that you already have inside of your organization that things start to get real hot real quickly, and so. We've had some success with some larger firms, some experiments kicking off in the last few weeks with other ones. This is where I think we'll be able to start talking more loudly soon, and that's pretty, it's exciting. It's not just
Yeah.
could we use AI, it's a few ideas of how.
Yeah, exactly. Exciting times. Right. Well, let's move on to the third and final quarter of, well, not quarter. What's it called? What do they call it in America? The phase in ice hockey, right? There's only three
Period?
phases.
Three
Period.
periods, that's what
Period.
Last period of the session where we're going to jump into the world of xFigura. Actually, am I pronouncing it correctly, Daniel? I've heard it's more like it's xFigura. Like a little
Figura.
xFigura. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm butchering it with my British accent, but
So good.
yeah, I'm excited to hand over to you, and you're gonna show people a little bit of what xFigure can do, which I'm hearing loads of good things, which is always a good sign in the industry when, I hear more and more firms adopting tools like this. So yeah, if you're ready, Daniel, you can share screen and take it away.
Okay. Awesome. Let me.
Chuck and Emiliano, I'll hide you guys for a sec.
Okay. Ali, let me know if you see my screen.
Yep, I think you're good. You're
Okay.
good.
Awesome. So hi everybody. Welcome. This is the presentation for xFigura, and I'm gonna give you guys a little demo at the end. We also send out code that you can use at checkout, get 20% off if you sign up and test out the platform yourselves. So here we go. So my name is Daniel Escobar. I'm head of R&D at xFigura, and I work mostly on developing some of these tools, doing some research on the latest AI models and tools, and we're trying to bring those to you so you can have it all in one platform. So these are some of the global partners that we're working with. They range from top architectural firms. We also work and give workshops across universities. And we're very happy to work with these firms. They're definitely pushing the platform to become what it's doing today. So we're also thankful for their feedback, and we like collaborating with top firms. So if you guys are interested, reach out to us. xFigura is one collaborative platform with endless possibilities. And the main feature about it is that it lives in an infinite canvas. And we have basic units called nodes. So it's a node based platform. and I'll show a little bit more of this in the demo. But here's the main idea to take away is that it's collaborative. It allows you to share with your team, so you can have a shareable link, send it across your team. You guys can come in, see what everybody's working on, and also generate in one place. We have some of the best models out there. We curate from the top resources and bring you the latest up-to-date models. These are some of those models. You've probably seen a few of them. OpenAI, Nano Banana, Magnifique, Flux models. So they all live in this one platform. So we covered text, image, 3D model generation, also a video generation, and upscalers for both images and 3D models. And we also have several integrations into software like Rhino, and we have a Revit plugin coming soon. Here's a little video of how the platform works. The node base, you prompt, you generate, few clicks, and you're good to go. Choose your model, edit an image, and it all lives in one canvas. And here you can bring your teammates on board. You guys can comment, leave notes, see what you're working on, share workflows, and go from there. This is our Speckle plugin, so we can load a Speckle model, and we can use it in a generative pipeline as well. And that's us. So how does xFigura work? Like I mentioned, it is an infinite canvas and it contains the nodes. And here's the basic function of the node. So the node is supercharged. We have the models, so you can toggle between the different types of models. We also have a ratio option, so you can pick and choose like what kind of size your image is going to be. There's an expand tool, so you can see your image wide. You can also download your images, and then the last blue button at the end is your generate. The little star icon lets you pick your model, and you can select from all the models that we currently have available at the platform. And here's some of the options that we have for image models. So we have text to image, video, 3D, upscale, and in paint. Here's a further breakdown of the text nodes. So the text nodes can work as just an individual text input into another node, but they also come with an LLM, specifically GPT, and you can actually talk to it, use it as a prompt enhancer, or have a conversation with the node to develop concept and ideas that can be passed on to other nodes. Here's a little bit about the image nodes. So these are some of the current functionalities that we offer: text to image to image, sketch to image, in painting, image enhancer, and relighting. And they all live within one node, so it's easy to find and change the models that you want to use. Same thing with the video nodes. So we have text to video, image to video. You can use start and end frames to create a video. And we also have a video enhancer and upscaler. Also, we have the 3D nodes. So we have image to 3D, multi-image to 3D, and segmented to 3D, which means that you can download some of these 3D models as parts. And we have exports like OBJs with texture, and also a native Rhino mesh that you can download and open it up in Rhino. And to summarize, this is all the parts that we cover within our platform. So you can see we can go from text to image, video generation. We can also edit images. We have a node called a compositor, and I'll show that in a bit, that lets you annotate images. And then finally, we also have agents and a video compositor that also lets you stitch videos together. So you don't have to go outside. You can do it in one shot and concatenate several videos and download that full joint video. Here's a little bit of preview of our vision agent. And the idea here is that instead of you figuring out how to prompt or how to use the nodes, you can just tell the agent what you want to do, and the agent will take care of that work for you and generate and place the notes on the canvas with the prompts. And then from there, you can go into the notes and modify uh, any part that you want, whether it's the prompt or any other kind of input reference image. And then as a more recently, we added a new node. It's called a World Model, and it comes from World Labs. So it lets you take an input image and convert it into a 3D world. So this becomes an immersive experience. You can dive right into your image, look around, take snapshots, bring out those images, and bring it into a generative pipeline so you can do image to image or generate a video from it as well. And here's a little preview of that. And all this lives inside of the platform. It's just another node that you can use. These are some of the examples of some of the image to image workflows with some of the latest models like Nano Banana, where you can take an image, change the facade, reimagine it, do diagrams, do annotations, and also extract elements from an image that can be then converted into a 3D model so you can bring it to Rhino. And here you can see how you can bring it into Rhinos and OBJ and then use it with Grasshopper as well. And then here's a little bit more of a preview of the image models. This is a typical workflow where you maybe have an image, you want to change views, and then you can put together a little story and a narrative to display your project. Okay. And here's a preview of a Rhino plugin. The Rhino plugin is available in the package manager. You can type xFigura, download the plugin, and then you can use it. It'll pop out as a window next in Rhino, and you can essentially take snapshots of your views in Rhino. It'll automatically load them up in our canvas, and then you can go from there and do iterations using our generative models. So these are some of the plugins that we currently have: Rhino, Speckle, Revit, and OpenStreetMaps. And then before we start the demo, I'll just leave this here. If anybody's interested, we created a special code for this workshop. So if you type in xFigura dash ATN dash go, you can get 20% off of your first month. So you can try it out. So you guys can take this, test out the platform, let us know what you think, and follow us on our Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And if you have any questions, send us also an email. Okay, so now we're gonna dive into the demo. Okay, so now for the demo, I'm just gonna start a little bit describing what the platform looks like. So here on the left side, you have your toolbars. The toolbars have, if you click on the plus side here, is your generate toolbar. So it contains all the models that are available that you can use. And you can just click on one of them and it'll automatically come onto the canvas. And then you can go in here and start typing a prompt. So this is your text node. And like I mentioned, you can see here on the right side which model it's using. And then this little X here with the 0, that tells you how many credits is used per generation. So every time you hit generate, you can take a look and see how many credits it's using. You can also find it here at the bottom with the star icon. And once you do that, you can go hit generate. And since this is a text node, it can enhance your prompt. But let's say if I want to create an image out of this, I'm going to drag this out here. And it automatically gives you the options to select the model. You can choose image. And then this is your prompt. So you can see it goes from the text node and automatically appears here in the image node. Then I go down here at the toolbar at the bottom, and then I can select the model to work with. So as an example, maybe I want to use ideogram. I can hit generate, and then it's going to start running. And if you look towards the right side, there's a set of options here. Image ratio, so you can change the image ratio 1:1, 4:5, 9:6, which is your typical landscape format. And then you can also get a vertical format. And here you get your image. From here, you can also move on. And the interesting part about having this type of workflow is that you can slowly stitch a set of options. So you can go in here and say, I want to change something about this image, or maybe I want to do an upscale. So you can select that node and you can upscale it and pick from some of the models that we have. We have Magnifique, which is one of the best models, Clarity, Topaz as well. Um, you can also go from here and go straight into video. So you'll get the video node as well. And then you can select from some of the models that we have. So we have Runway, Clang, Sora, Vio, and C-Dance for ByteDance. And then you pick the model and same thing, type the prompt in here, and then hit generate. So let's do one for now. And so I just type a prompt and then I hit generate here for the video, and it's going to take a little bit of time, and then we'll check back on it. And if I go further down here on the toolbar on the left side, we also have these other types of tools. We have an upload button, which lets you select from any types of images that you have. It also lets you upload 3D models. We have multiple available formats that you can upload. We have the compositor, which is essentially like our editor. You can put images into it, draw on top of them, and I'll show that in a bit. And it also has an input for video. So if you have multiple videos, you can drag in here and then concatenate the videos to make one final video. If I go further, we have another node called the parameters node. This is a custom config that if you want to have a set of parameters that you want to keep using, maybe you don't want to type out a full prompt. We already have like a preset, and you can pick and choose from some of these parameters and pass them onto a prompt, and then it automatically concatenates them into your prompt. Maybe I'll show that. For example, here I have an image node, and if you see I selected bird's eye view, it automatically passes it on, and then you can come in here and type whatever you want to generate. If I keep going down, we also have LoRa training. So if you have a data set you want to train a specific style on, we currently have this available as well. You can just drag and drop your 20 to 50 images in here. We'll take care of that. And then from here, we have some settings where you can pick and choose from some of the models that we offer. So we have a regular Flux model, Flux LoRa Turbo, and then we have the new Flux 2 models available as well. It tells you here the time that it takes to train and how many credits it would take to train one of these models. Once that's done, you can save this, and it would automatically save in a library. Then when you use one of these models, like a Flux 2, it would automatically give you access to the LoRa library that you trained. Okay. If I keep going here, we also have Spell Shape, which is a parametric prompt to parametric 3D generator. And you guys can test it out as well. Essentially, you type a prompt, and it'll be able to generate 3D geometries out of it. And then we have the Speckle plugin, which Emiliano spoke a little bit about before. And here, what you got to do is you need a link from your Speckle model. So as an example, I'm going to take one that I already have here. And this was shared from HENN. So I'm going to copy this link. You can see a little bit of the preview from the model that we use for this board. You can copy the link in. You hit load. Sometimes if you don't have your Speckle authentication set up, it's going to ask you for a token for read and write properties. So you would have to get that from the Speckle website. And then here you can see the 3D model, move around it. We also have a set of options here that if you can pan around, you can take a snapshot of this view, and it automatically saves it here. And then let's say I want to use it for a rendering pipeline. I can select this view, it'll turn blue, And then I'm going to open up an image node, connect this to here. And then if you see, it automatically loads that image that then you can use to run any rendering pipeline. So I can say like create a realistic rendering. Okay. So while this loads, I'll keep going here. We also have the Pinterest tool. So if you create boards on Pinterest, once you sign in, it'll give you an authentication pop up. But once you sign in, you have access to your Pinterest account boards. You can pick and choose. As an example, let me just go in here. And for example, I have some set of images that I like. I might want to use some for some style or some reference. I can just select the image, import to canvas, and it would automatically load the image onto the canvas. Cool. So here's like the rendering from this shot here. Further down, we have community templates. So if you have a set of notes or a workflow, you can save them here, and they would automatically load here. If you go to the top bar, these are some of the ones that I created. And once they're saved, you can say use now. So click on them and then use now, and it's going to automatically pop them into the canvas here. So these are workflows that you can save for later use. If you like, you can also share them with your colleagues. And then finally, the last part of the toolbar is that you have the gallery. So here, all your generations from the board will appear. So you can see some of mine. And then if you hit the tab here, this would load all the generations from across all of your boards. And then if you hit this one here, it'll open it up and you can see all the generations as well. You can also toggle and filter between images, videos, and 3D models. And then as an example, if you select one of this, you can like see the properties, you can expand, and it'll bring back the image. It'll tell you the dimensions, the blue house, and the rendering speed. Okay. And I'll close that out. So now I'll show a few examples of something that we can do with the Speckle viewer. So for example, I have this 3D model. I took some snapshots from this. I selected a few of this urban plan. Then I can drag out the nodes, and then I can start prompting them, changing the style, applying some rendering to it. You can make it more realistic. You can give it specific instructions on the style. Here's some examples of that. And then let me show you another way that you can use this, where if you take, let's say, a prompt to transform that model to like a rendering, a stylized rendering. Maybe there's an issue with this, like it added some stuff here that we don't want. You can then open up the compositor, and you can do this by dragging from this endpoint, open up the compositor, expand it, and then I can say something like maybe like draw like a bounding region where I want to change something like this. Okay, so that's my black region. I can close out and it'll save it, and then you can see it here. And then from there, I can pass this image to another model and tell it to remove everything that was in that black region. And then here's the final edit. So it removed all those buildings and that extra stuff that was added before. So this adds a little bit more control in how you can use these image generator models to edit your images. Okay, and let me scroll down a bit here. These are other examples, and this is me just creating some sort of template prompt as an example where I can say use this input image so of the site. and then apply this render style with the building colors, landscape colors, and street colors, and then an atmosphere to the input image. Um, so each one of these, I just went in, changed the input prompt. So wherever those brackets were, I just went in and changed what kind of a style I want, what color did I want for the buildings, and what atmosphere. And then from there, you can render it and like iterate and generate multiple options to get different results. This one, as an example, this one was trying to focus more on the green side of things and keeping the rest of the buildings white. The one here was trying to map the roads in a different color so you can see it. And then this one is adding comments specifically to the rendering. Here we can also change the style, so we can flip it so the background is black and then the buildings are white, or you can also do the reverse as well. In this case, we can also add a reference image. So I generated this clay-like image, and you can take that first input image of the site plan, connect your reference image in the second input, and then in the prompt, you can reference that second image specifically. So you can say apply clay model style from image two. And then once you do that, you'll get this new rendering with that texture. And then a little bit more of an interesting example, I pulled this image from Pinterest and I wanted to do an axonometric using that site plan. So I'm using this Pinterest image as a reference. I just want the axonometric layout and then maybe how the notes could go. So I use that input image from this site plan, and then I provide a more detailed prompt saying use input image one of the 3D site master model, extract, separate the layers of buildings and roads for image one, place them vertically, and then match the style in image two. You can be more specific, tell it like what you want at which part of the image. So the buildings are on the top, the middle is the roads, the bottom of the image is the landscape. And then once we check the output out, it does break it down into those parts. But this doesn't match the original style, so then I came back and used the other image again, and then develop a more complex prompt that is a little bit more specific for certain parts of the image. And you can be as detailed as you want to get an output something like this, where now you're coloring the buildings, you're making annotations for each layer, and making sure that this lines up with the original image. Similar approach here, take another style image, and then you can use that exploded axonometric and change the style graphics of that original axonometric. Okay. Okay, and then now, I don't know, Ali, if there's any questions. If not, I can keep going.
Let me just check the chat 1 sec. I think there was, there's two questions that was like conversion questions. So one, how do you convert it into Rhino? I don't know if we're going to we're kind of jumping ahead there. But people are curious how you convert it into Rhino. And someone was also asking, for the plans, can you generate it into a vector-based drawing? Is that possible or not yet?
As a convert, yes, that is something that we're looking into. So soon we will be able to take black and white line drawing and be able to download as an SVG or a DXF. So that'll be coming soon.
Nice. Another comment. This is amazing. Can I share my boards with external users which don't have an xFigura account? Like, you can share Miro, for example. But I guess they wouldn't be able to edit images or, yeah. Can you share it with other people?
Yeah, at the moment, you could share a board. So if you go here, share board, you can copy the link and also share or change the type of permission level. But as of now, and this is something we're looking into, you can only share with people that have an account. you can always get like a free account, but we're looking into being a little bit more open so you can share it with anybody, but they would just be able to view it or have viewing properties.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess for those of you who are new to AI image generation, all of these generations cost some kind of credits, right? So um, it's difficult to just make let everyone go nuts right on it. But unlike a mirror board, I guess there's like, there's not burning so much computation. But um, yeah, I mean, I really like the whole nodal aspect of it is quite. I haven't seen many people do the nodal thing. Obviously, it kind of. I'm a little bit biased coming from the grasshopper world because I think it gives you that level of complexity without it being too complex, if that makes sense, right? It's not just a website where you put an image and you get something back. Like, there's a real, there's enough depth to like get into it, which is I quite like.
Yeah, we try to reduce the number of functions and things that you can do so you can like really get going fast once you understand like which models are there. So image, 3D, and video models. Once you get those, then you can really start moving fast.
I also noticed we got a special guest in the background. I'm not sure if he's joined to speak, but I think George is in the background. Um, but maybe I'll bring him. I'll bring him for the next one. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I'll let you I'll let you crack on.
Awesome. All right, so I'll keep going. I'll show a little bit some more interesting workflows that we currently developed, and then we can go from there. Take other questions. So maybe I'll answer that question about the geometry export from 3D. So here's an example. This is just for like a person, but you can do it for any sort of 3D model. And then once you generate the 3D uh, person or object, we have a selection of these models. Tripod Rodin. This is one of the best models that we currently have, Rodin 3D. Um, it comes out into a viewer. You can go inside of the viewer and pan around and see the 3D model. So I can come in, see the 3D model here. And then you can hit the download button and we'll provide you with a set of different exporting options. We have GLB, OBJ plus texture, OBJ with the vertex color embedded, and then Rhino 3DM, which converts it into a native Rhino mesh as well. Okay. Okay, so then maybe I'll show this. This is a really cool board that we were working on internally. But the idea here is like, how do you like go about developing a project? How do you test ideas? How do you generate like different options? How do you generate a video, maybe even diagrams? So as an example, like this is like the image you can start from. You can then go in, prompt your way, modify the camera. From there, get a frontal elevation. Maybe there's parts of the image that you want to change or add elements. So in this case, we wanted to add the benches and the plants, but keep the background. So keep the background elevation. Um, and then from there, what's really interesting about the platform is that then you can start branching out and like testing different things. So as an example here, we can go in and change the view angle. We can then go and start creating kind of like these single standalone diagrams of the building. You can always, when you generate, pick and choose um, how many images to output. So you can go from two, you can also go to four, and then it'll give you a breakdown like so. So in this case, I picked two, so you can get them side by side. And if you want to look at them a little bit closer, you can hit expand here, and then it'll give you the two images. So they'll live on the left side here, and then you can pan around those, right? So this is really cool, and it also provides you with the dimensions of the image, the type of model that you use, and then the prompt. So if you like this prompt, you can copy it from here and keep reusing it. There's also like a way to compare the images. So up at the top toolbar, we have this little tool here. So it'll bring back the original image, and then you can slide around and see uh, what the original image was in relationship to this new one. So you can see that this one kind of matches really well. We just removed the exterior and changed the type of model like look. And then from there, one of the interesting examples that we can also do is start generating diagrams. Some of the new models are really good at doing this. So you can come in here, provide this kind of like simple model look, and then tell the model to create like a step-by-step diagram, more to explain like the architectural form, and then doing some annotation to it. So you can start here from the massing block, generate the arches, the steps, and then how do the terraces develop, the pool, and then more specific furniture and other elements to it as well. We can also clean it up for like a CAD drawing. And here's also like a version of that where you can take a CAD drawing, and this eventually we'd be able to export this into an SVG or something that you can work on top as well, and you can annotate and then make modifications on it as well. Here's another example of that, adding people to the image, and then you can generate a video directly from that as well. These are some examples of like more specific things that you can do with the prompts as well. The idea here is you can take a reference image, break it down into specific parts from the model, and get these kind of like diagrammatic annotations, so you can see a little bit of that. This is super interesting that we can actually do this now. So this is one of the things that we're exploring recently to see how much more we can get out of AI at this point in time. And then, like I mentioned a little bit before, I'll show a little bit of what the compositor can do. So in this case, I have this image. Um, I can go in the compositor, draw these red masks, and I want to add people on top of these couches. But I want to make sure they're there, so I use the red mask as an indicator for the model. And then I can tell the model using instructions to say add people in the red region, so the first image, use the second image to keep the furniture in place, don't add or change anything else. And you can see the final output here. So the people were placed in the right place. Then I can go upscale it, make it a little bit nicer. And that's one workflow that you can do with the compositor. You can also be a little bit more explicit with the compositor. You can go in, draw an arrow, or and point to a specific feature that you want to change. And in this case, we can also add text. So you can say, turn this pond into a koi pond. And then if we see the outputs, here's what you get. It adds some fishes from a koi pond. Okay. And then the other thing about the compositor that's really cool is that, as an example, I took this image from Rhino, did a rendering on top, and then generated 3 different videos from it, each capturing like something unique about it. Change the time of the day, a rotation, and then like a zoom in. And then using the same approach with the compositor, if you see here, this is the final merge output. So you can connect the 3 different videos into the compositor as so. And then when I open it up, they show up here. So then you can see them, play them, and join them together, and also like reduce the amount of time. Then you can do a save merge video or download the images, the video as well. And then one of our favorite things to do is essentially taking like an image of a building and seeing if we can place it in a Google Earth shot. And the idea here is like maybe you have an image from Google Earth, you can clean it up slowly. So remove the cards, remove any objects on the street, remove the people so you get a clean shot. And then from there, we're going to use this image and try to place it inside to replace the original brick building. And here's a rendering of that. You can see it works for some other like other types of images, but once you clean it up, it adds a little bit better as well. So like you can kind of build these iterative workflows where you're making edits throughout the image, but you can keep stitching them together until you get what you want, and then finally get the desired output. And then this can move on into another editing step. So one of the things about this is that the platform works as a way to develop workflows, and then you can save those workflows also as templates. So for example, if I select this, like I like this type of workflow, I can select all the nodes, and then I can go here and save as a template, give it a name. So I can say like Google Earth render, save template. It'll tell you that the Google Earth render has saved. And if I go here to the left on my dashboard here, the template tab comes up, and then I can scroll here to me. And then if you see, here's the template. Now, if I want to use it again, I can click on it and then say use now, and then it's automatically going to bring it into the canvas. Okay. And then I'll show some of the most recent developments, which is the world models. So as an example, here I have this image, which I have changed the materiality here using prompts, like very targeted editing. And then I want to actually visualize this image in 3D. So I'm going to send it to our node here, and you can find the World Labs node, select on it, it'll pop out. You can also type a prompt to generate a 3D space out of it, but I'm going to use this image here that I have. And then once it generates, you can go in here, expand it, and it'll load up the 3D immersive view. And maybe I'll stop there, Ali, see if there's any questions, thoughts.
Yeah, let me jump in and have a look. It's really interesting, like all the different ways you guys can do this kind of stuff in one space. There is a few questions. There was actually one. Well, first of all, maybe I'll bring George onto the stage because he's popped in. So we'll say hello, George, who's one of the man behind xFigura, or one of the men behind xFigura. Thank you for joining, George.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Really interesting stuff. Like I said, I'm definitely love the kind of nodal aspect of it. Obviously, as the grasshopper guy, it's super familiar. There was actually a question that I was also curious, Daniel, in the last your last example, right? You said you developed a more complicated prompt, but when you showed it, it almost looked like code. That would be kind of interesting to maybe just double click. I mean, maybe double click literally on it and explain what that looks like, the like more detailed code prompt.
Yeah, sure. So this is, maybe if I show it here. Well, this is one way to go about it. It's just a longer prompt, but it's more strict. So it's broken down into like hierarchies. And then the other one that I had, it's something that looks more like this, which is like JSON prompting. Some of these AI models, they're really good at taking JSON prompts, and you can provide like specific instructions. So it almost works as a way to like give it parameters and tell the model, for this parameter, do this, for this parameter, do that. And it becomes like a more strict way of formatting your prompts. And then if you look at the output, it does match. So it says like floor plan position lower left, it's here, isometric position upper right. And then you can give it other properties like scale 1 to 100. So you can kind of like see that it kind of puts that there. It might not know what the scale is, but it does add the annotations as well. So this is like another kind of approach of prompting.
And do you generate that with, I think you showed before, like your AI agent or your own chatbot, or you just going to like a regular LLM to use it? How do you generate that?
Yes, so you can use our text node, and you can pretty much, since it uses GPT-5, you can just tell it like what to prompt. Usually what I would do is like tell specifically like, oh, give me like a JSON style prompt, and I want to have, these properties for the image, and just type in here. So give me a JSON style prompt.
Yeah.
And then hit the generate button, and then it'll return that prompt for you. So we do use an LLM here on the platform to generate those as well.
Which is sort of the beauty, right? You don't need to leave xFigura to access all this stuff.
And just to jump in, I think this is really the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing a ton of new potentials with agents, with hyper personalization, with the latest trend of vibe coding. These large language models, now we just use ChatGPT. We're going to launch Gemini. Claude's going to come in. Each model performs in different ways, but using those within the design framework to prompt to really do anything, or even to connect on web and do search, like just integrating that by itself is, it's so fun.
Yeah. It's really impressive what you guys like are building all these features on top of it, right? So you can pull in stuff from Rhino and go back and forth, but then you're also just integrating these massive, platforms and models. I really like the workflow as well, the way you like work around as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Maybe to add to your Grasshopper comment as well, I think the framework of Grasshopper, the framework of xFigura as, an infrastructural level, it definitely stands. We are all in for accessibility. So the goal is in 5 minutes or in less, in 2 minutes, you should understand how a workflow is made. So we're definitely diving deep into templates. We are soon going to launch, it's called pipelines. Think of them as apps. And so you'll be able to convert a template into a non-node based interface. So you can just use it, upload your image, get your output 3 nodes later, but you don't actually need to see the nodes. So really doubling down to whatever technical level. Not that I think it's complex personally. I'm also a Grasshopper, user, but giving the user that level is, I'm sure unlock a whole new set of users.
Yeah, because I do agree. I think I think you guys have hit a good balance where you're giving people enough to get under the hood, but it's also seems very intuitive and simple to use. I think a lot of the ones I've seen, they're trying to kind of do so much for you in the background that you just put an image in and you get it back, and then you don't really have the control you want because it's like a black box behind that thing. So yeah, I think this is really really nice. There was a question specifically about the Rhino, like pulling in a view from Rhino and how that works in terms of like, can you change the camera angle? A bit like you showed with the Speckle example. Um, yeah, how do you pull stuff in from the Rhino viewer?
Yeah, so maybe I think I had a piece here on it. So the Rhino viewer, if you download it from the package manager, it'll come in as a separate window. So you'll kind of get like a web viewer. So pretty much like the canvas that I currently show on the web, you'll be able to have it as a separate window inside of Rhino. And there's a few buttons, which I don't have it open right now, but there's a few buttons that essentially are custom to the plugin that lets you, if you have like, let's say the perspective view in Rhino, you can click on it and select that view. Then there's a button that says like capture that image from that view, and it automatically populates the canvas with that image. So then from there, it's kind of like the same flow that I just showed with the nodes.
Yeah, so it's more like you pull in the snapshot rather than orient around a viewport kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can move inside of the viewport and then keep taking snapshots, and it'll automatically bring it in as well.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of double one. Can you show again how to? Will you show in painting and how to fix these small corrections, and also how can you prevent the referent image from affecting the geometry? But I guess that's also kind of largely which model I guess you're using, right? Like Nano Banana is quite good at that at the moment, but if you use something else, it might be nuts.
Yeah, as far as for like the in paint thing, so like one approach that we've been kind of doing, that we think at this point works decent is, for example, kind of like using our compositor. So we also have like, as an example, we also have like an in painting node, and we also have like a set of models specific for that you can use. These are some of like the best ones that we found. You can go from anything from like Nano Banana, which is probably the best one at this point, but we also have the Flux 2, the Flux Pro in Paint. And these work the same way. So if I take, as an example, this image here, I go to the brush, I can come in and color it or create like the region area that I want to edit. So for example, if I use this lasso tool here, it'll come in with that mask. I can save that mask and then it'll show up here. So you get the image and the mask. And then from there, I can tell it anything. So maybe if I can use nano for now, but add staircase. And then I can just hit generate and it's gonna treat it as like an in-painting module. And then the other approach that I showed before was kind of using a compositor, also drawing the mask. You can put it in a red color, any color you want, but then telling like the model specifically, like, add a green roof in the red region of the image, keep everything else the same. And then it'll follow those instructions as well. So there's two modes of in-painting, but they're very similar.
Okay, nice. Nice, and I think there was one more. Can you show us how to edit a template? How do I reuse the workflow I've created?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to here to the dashboard, this icon here, it'll bring out templates. We already have like a set of preset templates that you can pull from. But then once you make your own, like for example, like the one that I just showed you guys, what I just did, you can go here, you can share it public, you can save it, also delete it and try it again. But ideally now what you can do is, let me just put it down here. So I'm gonna bring it in like so. So I'm gonna say use now as an example. And then if you see it, it'll automatically populate the nodes. You can come in here, edit it. Sorry, just exited out of that one. You can come in here and just say like generate, so it'll run the whole template. Or you can like recreate it and then just essentially modify parts of it.
Okay, nice. It's a bit like a grasshopper group in a way.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice. I think that's all the questions, guys. Keep them coming because there's some great ones. But yeah, this is cool. I don't know if you got more to show, right? Or
I think that would be all. We also have like maybe like the multi-view angle. You can use a Quen model, so you can switch. Let's say you start from an image, you can switch the view angles. So this is kind of also useful if you want to do view it from
yeah.
another area. These are some examples that we have. So if I pull it up a bit, maybe I click on the node here, you can see how it works. You can select the Quen edit model, the sum model is the multi-angle model. And then it gives you this little tool here where you can essentially move around the camera and it automatically would be able to generate a view based on where you place the camera. And then here's a little bit of some of those examples from that room. So you can see this one raised the camera up, this one moved it down a little bit closer to here. And then this one kind of pushed it towards the left a bit. And this one's from the fountain here. So this is pretty cool workflow. It lets you explore from like a different side of the scene, and then you can still build this out and do some other edits on top of that as well.
Nice. I might throw you a curveball question because I don't know if I don't think you're Rhino open, but how do you bring? I know you've experimented with like 3D models. You can generate a 3D model, right, and then bring it into Rhino. Do you want to just? I know you showed it a little bit, but
yeah, maybe I'll download this one just to go here.
Is it just yeah? Okay, it's just download it and then you open it in Rhino, or is there a way to just pipe it straight into Rhino?
At the moment with the plugin, we're working on a way to have like this bi-directional connection. So that should be coming probably in the next version of the plugin. But for now, you can download it straight. Just bring it down. You can select one of these, the OBJ with the texture, OBJ with vertex color. This should pop up in Rhino, Blender, any kind of like 3D software. And then we also have a Rhino 3DM file, which is a native, like I just click on it. It'll be like a native Rhino mesh that you can open up as well.
And I guess for people that maybe not tried this kind of AI 3D stuff. I think the way people use it is like it's quite good if you've created a concept and you want the proportions and the feel for it, but then of course you're kind of just rebuilding it, right? It's not super accurate. That may come. Do you think that will come later on down the line? You know, like a pretty accurate model, or is it that's a long way away?
Yeah, they are getting better by the year. So like checking in from like maybe like a year ago or so, you definitely had lower quality. Now some of the models that we currently have the platform like Roding, 3D, like this is the type of quality that you can get. So it's pretty decent. Like even just for clothes and
Oh
things like
yeah.
that are usually
Yeah.
a little bit harder to model. But it's getting pretty good at modeling specific details. Um, Not only for people but also for like objects or 3D objects like architectural models is also pretty good as well. And so I would definitely say like probably like the next few years we're gonna see a huge development in this. One of the things that we're looking into is like how do you get individual parts from these 3D models so it's a little bit more easy to edit afterwards.
And then I've got another like maybe let's open up a can of a more philosophical, deeper question of like which George, maybe you can jump in as well. But go to the example where you've got like the it's annotating the drawing, right? Now, there's two things I see people kind of hyping about right now or talking about is no, I think you had one with more technical. Uh, it was like diagram technical annotations, right? But I see a lot of people experimenting with floor plan generation. Oh yeah, this kind of stuff, and it's sort of right, but in a lot of times it's like sort of quite wrong. Um, Especially, I've also seen people doing um, like daylight analysis with this, which to me seems kind of bonkers. It's like getting a painter to do your solar analysis rather than a scientist. But do you think it really comes down to is the AI in the background, is it really thinking and understanding what these things are, or is it just replicating a million drawings it's seen before? And do you think it's actually going to get to a point where it understands what these things are?
So George, you want to hop in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I
Yeah.
think part of learning about these diffusion models, these image generation or video generation models, is that they're dumb images. They're trained on past images. They're trained on past video models. Now, video certainly unlocks a deeper level of physics understanding, but users sometimes don't understand. Okay, there's a column floating. These are not trained on, the way we simulate, the way physics works. And so I think there's a huge question about bringing it back to bringing disciplinary knowledge back into the data sets. A huge
Mm.
opportunity, especially within architecture. Firms to go deep into customization, either with agentic RAG models or with, training LoRa models or whatever the next version is. But at the moment, it's incredible to see the level of detail you get on data sets that are not specific to architecture.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great point. Like that one's quite good, right? It's like it's sort of got most of those things right. You'll see in other ones like it kind of guesses and it's maybe in the ballpark, but like the daylight analysis one, is that completely bonkers to do, or do you think it's actually got some thinking? That's a weird one to me.
well, you can't. The models are definitely getting better. Like there's still some form of convergence. You can probably get decent results if your data set is decent and somewhat, accurate. It's the classic expression in computer science. It's garbage in, garbage out. You won't know for sure if the input data will give you accurate daylight analysis, and that this definitely cannot compete with machine learning, like a traditional like statistical approach where it's trained on synthetic or real data, and you'll get a much more accurate, even if it's faster result.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, it's really impressive already what it can do. It's like that's my question. It's like, how
But I think
intelligent will it get?
floor plans are the interesting one now. We're seeing
Yeah.
like more and more people are starting to, okay, here's a building, here's an image, convert this into a floor plan or vice versa. And so then the question is, could we really bypass the 3D model? And we're truly seeing a behavioral shift, especially in concept design stages, from a heavy reliance on the rhinos, on the Revits, when you could actually just build, let's build the massing model, let's get a form, let's put in the constraints, and then get to a concept design stage through images. There is still a back and forth, but it's different now. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of a shift happening. So super interesting.
Yeah. Exciting but scary times. No, this is really cool. I've been looking forward to seeing this in action, and yeah, I definitely want to get my hands dirty on it. And of course, the guys will see you guys at the summit. I think Daniel, you won't be there, but George, you'll be at the summit, so you can
Yes.
come and meet George and yeah, ask him questions about how to make more cool stuff. Have you got any features you're got in the pipeline that you want to promote that you can promote?
Daniel, I don't know if you want to share the closing slides. A lot coming up. We're going deep into more integrations, more features, fully accessible. If anyone's interested at any of these levels, we are typically enterprise first. Love to talk the enterprise features. We've got a lot on the enterprise level, of course, starting from data security, of course. But academics, I also teach at Harvard at the moment, so I'm deeply invested in this academic space. And Daniel has been doing an awesome job of giving a ton of workshops recently. So it kind of goes across spectrum. But yeah, Daniel, I don't know if you want to wrap up some final remarks.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I think I've mentioned a bit ago, but we are working on a Revit plugin. That's definitely on the roadmap. So that be coming soon. And then some other features, I think like George said, is the idea of pipelines. Like how do we make the templates a little bit easier to use so they become like mini apps that then you can just keep reusing once you create. Like you create your workflows using the nodes, you can just save that, repeat it, hand it over, share it with like people at your firm or colleagues. So that's also something that we're developing at the moment. And then, yeah, I think the other thing that maybe I didn't show that much, but the idea of the agent, we currently have it in beta. And the idea now is that you will be able to talk to your agent, tell it what you want, and it'll be able to generate the node workflow from you. And then from there, you can go in and start editing and becoming a little bit more specific on things that you want to see. So that's also something that we're currently working. So keep on a lookout for that. And Ali, thank you for this. This was awesome. And the previous guys also had great presentations. And glad to see how even HENN with Emiliano, how they're using xFigura. That was really cool to see in action.
Yeah. I'll bring them back on stage if you want to unshare your screen. But yeah, thank you guys. I think this was really cool. I feel like we'll do a couple workshops with ATN in the future, deep diving even further into this because it looks super interesting. But thank you guys. Look, we're now a grid of 5. We've grown since the end. But yeah, Emiliano, I don't know if you want to add anything or Chuck on the xFigura side, but
No, I think the grasshopper comparisons are fun, but the node setup is it's too exciting to see. It does make everything make a little bit more sense. A lot more sense, maybe, I'd say.
Guys, put into the chat if you guys have any final questions. But I think we've covered a lot in a good amount of time. Nice 3 hours. That's like a good, perfect time frame. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. Where's the best way for people to contact you? I think LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. If Emiliano or George or Daniel, people have questions. Chuck's already fired out his email, so he's going to get like 1,000 spams. But yeah, where's the best way to reach out to you guys? LinkedIn?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not an
LinkedIn.
active poster, but I try to answer if somebody wants to get in touch or has follow-up questions.
Nice.
And anyone, feel free to email us at info@xfigura.ai. And we've got 30% academic discounts. And for anyone following today, we'll probably write in the chat. It's an ATN discount. It's called xFigura-ATN-Go. That's 20% off the first month for anyone listening in.
There you go. I'll put it in the chat. It's in the comments, but I'll put it also in the chat below. Guys, thank you so much. Obviously, if you want to come and meet these guys in real life, come to the summit and you can meet them, have a beer. We actually, unlike other conferences, we are creating, instead of a sponsor room, it's going to be a sponsor pub. So we're actually going to try and create our own little pub. And there will be free beers after a certain time. I got to calculate when's the right time to unleash the beers, so people don't get too rowdy, and also it won't cost too much in beers. But you can meet these guys, come have a beer with them, pick their brain. That's when the magic happens. That's when the innovation happens. So come along. If not, I'm sure we'll have these guys at a future Pechakucha somewhere in the world. Maybe we'll come back to New York, where we saw George and Daniel last time, or maybe we'll be in Berlin. We'll see. But guys, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned. Right after this, we're going to release our next workshop, which is with Zaha, the Unreal game engine and Spaceform, and how to create your own configurators using Unreal and Spaceform. It's pretty cool. It'll be the same time next week, where we got a train of workshops, and then after that we got Finch and KPF. So stay tuned for all of this, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next workshop.
Thank you as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you guys.